mainstream media.
I'ma tell them what.
Ain't right, man, ain't right.
You know what I mean?
I think it's time for you to hear the truth.
Tell the truth, man.
Every nation, in every region, now has a decision to make.
Hey yo, they don't like my songs. Bush came to my yard, he wants to take me on. Phone the most high, I'm like, yo, it's on. Devil's in my face, pop, don't be long.
All you need is faithful soul. Have no fear, my son, my kingdom you alone. 400 years, no knowledge of your home. Now is your chance to reclaim the throne.
Okay, pop, yeah, no doubt. I'll buzz you back once I'm taking him out. But he reckons I got weapons, what's he talking about? I don't like the way the devil's running his mouth.
Now watch that, it's just an excuse. See, they don't like you, son, cause you tell the truth.
Hey yo, pop, United Nations turned up. They wanna search my yard till I them up.
Nah, son, you leave them to me. Now you deal with that caution, calling pal Fassi. I got fire for them bad side for those who oppose me. Hurricane, tornadoes, earthquakes, you'll see.
Exodus, the devil we no like. See me left from wrong upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So me look upon the black star line. Exodus, the devil we no like. See me left from wrong upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So me look upon the black star line.
I'm interested in the truth, and the truth is what I will pursue.
We have to recognize who our major enemy is.
The biggest challenge before you right now is, who is the enemy?
Life is becoming increasingly miserable for everybody. But when they find out who it is that's causing the trouble.
I will tell you what the mainstream media will not tell you.
That the Jewish people control the media.
People need to get out of denial very quickly. Because your children are being poisoned, you're being poisoned, children are being indoctrinated and programmed and turned into software programs at school. You're being poisoned in the air, you've been poisoned from the sky, poisoned in your food, poisoned in your water, poisoned by vaccine. How bad does it have to get before people in vast numbers realize that the world ain't like they thought it was?
I'm talking to you. The principle and the idea was divide and rule, divide and conquer. $1 billion a week spent on war. 15 million Americans are homeless in the street. We can build Iraq and Afghanistan, but leave you with nothing.
You have to come together. There has to be a foundation of unity before you to get anywhere, especially if you're black in this country.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing else.
I want you to hear me. Speak the truth regardless of circumstance and stand up on the truth from the cradle to the grave.
Rebels on some dirty way. Yo, the murder was the case they gave. And it was just the other day when they stepped out the caucus man in caves. The murder's undercover blood. But guess what? They slipped up. The people are starting to wake up. And as soon as we get together, they ain't here to apologize for the outcry while we're on the genocide. Till today, from the time we arrived, Mother Africa is still dripping blood from her eyes. Ain't super turning around my words. I'ma tell the truth to their hurts. And I'ma keep spreading love to the peace. But right now, I'ma drop the truth on the verse. And I'ma dismiss unrighteousness. My backside, they can kiss, they can't handle this. I got a long list of brains with power and fists who insist government's taking a piss.
Exodus, the devil we no like. See we left from wrong upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So we look upon the black star line. Exodus, the devil we no like. See we left from wrong upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So we look upon the black star line.
Yo, come let me bust the things for all you hustling. I might scuff your Tims how I'm busting in the fight. I'm struggling on some other thing. Head wrap and skull cap, I call my brother king. Work whining and you know that. It's like a prison wing, how we keep the show pack. I don't hold back. Radio, play my whole track. Most cats listen close as phone taps. There's no black in the Union Jack. Britain flows pierce ears like guns with studs in them. Count bars like you're stuck in prison. count scars on a body that's slug-ridden. It's the fusion of the E's, brews and ganja, giving these youths delusions of grandeur. And only a few who've left to have a stretch on the psychiatric wing return to the manor. I'm the one that rap for them people suffering. Try function in a world that's got no love for them. Enough of them would rather vote for Big Brother than vote for them hypocrites that's in the government. Well, f them then. It's Emmanuel and Brother Ben.
Yeah.
Melt into your entirety. If there's something wrong, you don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter.
You think the US don't have weapons of mass destruction?
You ain't on what's going on. It's a general idea. With who? I'm working on it.
Jumbo, Otep, Peace, Lama. This is Authority Radio. My name is Sayshara. I'm here for the next couple of hours and beyond. And yes, I'm just warming up, so just tune into here, Sayshara, for the next couple of hours. I'm going to apologize for those people who sent a link to that probably was taking you nowhere or probably giving you an empty page. Apologies for that. But that's kind of been corrected, and I still haven't finished actually updating some people, but as time goes by, you'll get it, all right? But I'm here. This is the Sunday Interactive Talk Show. Obviously, I'm here to have an interaction with you, the listening audience, okay? And that's what we're all about here. And it's about giving you a voice, and the voice that really needs to be heard, because what I'm finding out is that I feel like there's a lot of our people, when we're talking about things, I want to be talking about things from a Black African perspective, and we'll be looking at things on the global planet Earth, wherever Black people are as a whole, but we will be talking about other cultures and what's going on there, because as you know, everything is interconnected, everything is interrelated, and everything is relative, okay? So we don't leave a lot of stuff out. I would advise people to just tune into as much information and knowledge around what's going on in the world, okay? Because what you find is that we're affected by a lot of different things. And we have relationships with different cultures and different groups of people and all of this stuff, okay? So we can't exclude these different things. So I like to really broaden out my conversations, widen up the debates, and have these kind of constructive, positive dialogues, okay? Where we can evoke and provoke and get people to think, more importantly, and get people to think about, as a group of people, as a nation of people, how can we continue the works, to continue the building and the process of building to improve our conditions, to improve our quality of life, to empower ourselves, to uplift us, and of those things kind of nature, okay? And that's what we need to be looking at. We always need to be looking at how we need to go forward and advance and progress and help our people in the best way possible. So that's what I'm talking about. And generally, as you go on, I'm not going to go on about myself because I don't like talking about me and what I'm about. But as time goes by, you get to understand a little bit more about what I'm about, or the things that I support, the things that I've experienced, and the things that I know, and how I look at things, and everything that really applies to you as well. I'm interested in your knowledge, your experience, your thoughts, your feelings, and your experiences, and all of these different things that makes us say, look, you know, I've got time to sit down and listen. I've got time to have a conversation. You know, things that I feel personally as Black African people, as a nation of people as a whole, we don't do enough communication in terms of when we're talking about things. We're just talking about identifying our problems and issues and how we should go about dealing with that. How is it important for us to be able to work together regardless of our differences and our views and how we perceive reality? I think that a lot of times we get caught up with a lot of different distractions, okay, and it inhibits us as a group of people to work together. Let's put away our differences and all of emotions and all our egos and all these things. We all got this, but we need to know how to manage it, okay, to a degree where we should be able to balance ourselves, to be able to work together. Because I think that one of the real reasons why I'm here, one of the purposes, the main purpose why I'm here, is that I'm all about what we can do for our children and our children's future and the future of our future generations, okay? And I think that as a father, I think that as parents, as each and every one of us as individual community members, whether or not you think you're in a community or whatever, no matter where you are, okay, we are one group of people. No matter where your mind is, no matter where your heart is, you might not see things the way that we should have a common view and thinking and feeling about things, okay? Now we're doing things together, okay? That we're here, no one really cares about us to the degree where we need to care about ourselves, okay? And we need to respect ourselves. And we need to continue, as I said, the works that's been done from my parents' generations and my grandparents and our great-grandparents and our great-great-grandparents and so on, okay? The works that they did and put in, the things that they had to go through, the tribulations and things like that they had to go through, right? So to me, the little things that I'm here doing, okay, is nothing in comparison to what my parents did or what my grandparents did or what my great-grandparents and stuff like that, yeah? So for me, when I'm thinking about doing things or working with my people or my community and stuff like that, I feel it's a duty, it's a responsibility, and it's a role that it's incumbent that I have got no choice. I have to do that, okay? But again, like I said, not everybody's at this or certain levels of thinking and being, okay? And what I feel that we need to do as a group of people is that we need to look at the things that we are affected right now, things that's happening right now, okay? And so my subject today is talking about the Windrush generation 1948 versus the Windrush Scandal 2018. Now, I've been looking at this and I'm very passionate about this because obviously my parents are from Jamaica. It's supposed to be what being classified as the British, part of the British Commonwealth, and sometimes we have to wonder about that. We have to wonder about the kind of languages that we've been brought up with or we've been indoctrinated into or we've been taught that this is how we need to identify ourselves, okay? But in terms of talking about the relationship that we have here in this country called England, and let me just stop there. I want to say for all those people there out there, I want to say the most important thing is that rather willing that you're in good spirits, in the best of health, and life is definitely treating you well, okay? So in terms of going back to our story, or our narrative, okay, it's been referred to as the Windrush Scandal. So I've really dovetailed this Windrush Scandal with the fact that the Windrush generation were invited by the British government, not by the common law people. This was directly the British government, and it goes right to the top. It's the same thing with this whole thing to do with the Windrush Scandal of 2018. It goes right to the heart of the British government, not the common law people, or what you call the indigenous people of this country, whether they want to call themselves English, Welsh, Scottish, or Irish, what you call the British Isle, what some people call Great Britain, or Britannia, or the UQ. I like to call it the UQ because it's the United Kingdom. There's a queen on the throne right now, the monarchy. So, when we look at ourselves and we say that we're British, what are we? Are we British citizens? Are we British subject? Am I a migrant descendant from migrants? Because when the Windrush generation came, remember now, 1948, they were invited by the British government, okay? So there isn't no comparisons in terms of looking at other narratives or other stories with other groups of people. This is just exclusively to us Caribbean and Africans from the motherlands, people that we're talking about, people from the British Commonwealth, right? This is what we're talking about. So this whole thing to do with the so-called scandal, it's not really a scandal, it's much more bigger than that, okay? But we take the narrative that they've given us. And remember now, this narrative, the Windrush Scandal, has gone around the globe. Everybody knows about it and understands to some degree what has been taking place here, what has been happening here in this country when it comes to black African people, when it comes to people from the Caribbean or Africa, wherever you feel, wherever you say you want to call yourselves, okay, out there, right? We recognize that we are people of African origins, okay, that we have from African heritage and that we are African descendants, okay? So the problem that we stem to have and continue to have, we will continue to have, is that we have a government, a British government that has a lack of responsibility, okay, or in certain terms are irresponsible based on their actions. And I say this, that this whole thing is a big case. It's not just a scandal, it's a big case, okay, that needs to be thoroughly dealt with, okay, in a way that we should have our own report, or we should have our own inquiry waiting for, rather than that we should wait for the British government to give us a report, or whatever they say they want to stipulate how they're going to deal with this problem and issue, okay? Because what you're going to get, you're not going to get very much from the British government. And what you see is happening, and what really I find really disturbing, is the way that they're finding ways to kind of sweep this whole thing underneath the carpet, like it was nothing or nothing never happened and stuff like that, right? However, like I said, again, there's untold information out there for people to look at, right? It's right there. It's on the fingertips of any computer system or phone or tablet that you got out there, whatever technology you want to use out there, it's there, right? So I've really looked at so many different things and aspects of this. It's very, very in-depth subject or a problem or issue that we're actually having. It's actually happening now. It's live right now, okay? So I'm not talking about some fantasy or some fairy tale thing, okay? This is something that really does affect people from the Caribbean and people from Africa, okay? Because there is an agenda here, okay? And there's been an agenda for quite some time. So when I'm saying that this is the case, okay, this is breaching human rights conventions and, you know, black people, African people's civil liberties. This is what it's doing. And the problem that we have is that, like I said, again, I'm going back to the British government as a lack of responsibility. They don't really need to do anything for us, and why should they? Do you get what I'm saying? Why should they feel like they have the need to do anything good for us, right? Just what I'm saying. So there's a lot of questions that we really need to be asking, right? Where if you look at the Caribbean governments and you look at the African governments, together, they don't make one. They don't care about us. None of them care about us, right? So whether they want to call themselves black or white or whatever, right? We live in a system that's supposed to be working together, right? And that's the impression or the illusions that we've been given. But if you look at the British government's mandate and agenda of around how they deal with their problems and issues, okay, and compare it to how they deal with other cultures, you see that there's the structure there that's based on class, okay. So the whole thing around the British leadership, the British government, and how they do things and work with the Caribbean leaders and African leaders, right? In terms of looking at the Commonwealth and how we're still a part of the Commonwealth, then you see that these countries are supposed to be so-called independent. Where is the independence when you are still part of the British Commonwealth? So it really makes no sense to me, okay? And then none of these leaders from Africa or the Caribbean have stepped up and really sent a strong message to the British government that what you're doing is human rights abuse, or it's a human rights against your civil liberties, right? And maybe a lot of people can't see that because really, if you study or even hear what the mainstream media is saying and pushing out there, right? It makes us look bad, right? That's what it does. It's making us look bad. But we are victimized, yeah? So now, if you look at the time era gap between 1948 to 2018, that's 70 years. That's 70 years, right? From the time they invited our people here as migrants, not immigrants, as migrants, okay, with a British citizenship, okay? And now we got to look at what does British citizenship is defined, and what does the policies and laws around being a British citizen, and how does that apply to us as people from the Caribbean or from Africa, right? So I've got untold information that I've got that you need to hear, so you can see that our case is a very, very strong case against the British government. And it's not the common law people, the people here, right? Let's be real. And the thing is that we got black people here as well, right? That are in the parliamentary system, right? But they don't represent us. A lot of people say, oh, we need black leaders in the government and we need black people representing us and all of this stuff, okay? But we've got to wake up to the reality that those black MPs in the British parliamentary system, they represent their particular party, whatever party it is. If it's Labour, they represent Labour. If it's Conservative, Conservatives, Liberal, and whatever party is out there, right? They cannot represent wholly and solely just on black people. It's just not going to work like that, yeah? They have to work based on their constituency, whatever constituency that they're in. And that, obviously most constituencies in London or all over the country are quite so-called diverse and mixed. We claim to be living in a so-called diverse, so-called multicultural environment, but yet this scandal, this kind of mistreatment and ill-treatment of one group of people, why? I'm asking the question, why is it really happening? So let me just stop there and give you the numbers so you know where to go and get this whole thing going. And if you want to phone 073 054 17668. Now I'm not sure if the phone's even, let's see if it's even linked up. Right, is the phone linked up? Not sure. Right, but anyway, please send me a text to let me know how I'm sounding. I'm just looking at the phone. I've got to get familiar with the phone because it's new to me. I don't even know. All right, so yeah, Sayshara Sunday Interactive show. All right. So that's happening every Sunday between 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. Okay, note that. All right. So I've got a lot of articles to go through. All right. So much. I've got a lot of reading to do. And basically, I want to thank Lorna last week for actually sending me a text about the coronavirus, and you're on point there. Okay, just to let everyone know that obviously do your own risk assessment or self risk assessments, okay, on this whole issue around the coronavirus, and obviously just be aware, okay. So going back to talking about Windrush 1948 to the Windrush Scandal 2018, and that is ongoing. I was talking about that at the present moment there is this compensation scheme that is ongoing, and I kind of covered it last week, but I'll just go over it just a little bit very early, and maybe I'll try and cover it over later. But people need to be aware of this, that they are, a lot of people are entitled to tap into this Windrush compensation scheme. And at the same time, we need to maybe question a lot of stuff around this, okay? And, find out the pros and cons about what's that's all about. Is it really working? Because I'm getting different messages around this. And I got some stuff where I came across information that there's millions and millions of pounds available, untold, tens of millions of pounds involved. But apparently they've only forked out just a small fraction of that money. And so obviously there is flaws with the system. There's always going to be flaws to the system, but I think that, and there are some major flaws that need to be fixed and repaired, okay, to be able to get to a better place where we need to be, right? But at the same time, we got to be looking at kind of not depending on the system to do things that for us at the same time. So we're kind of caught up in that polemic that we need to know that we need to be really self-independent. So in the way that we need to be self-independent, that we know that we're not going to be manipulated by other people throwing money at us and stuff like that, right? But it goes on to say that dear residents, supporting the Windrush generation, I'm writing to you to encourage you to apply for the Windrush compensation scheme, and basically they're encouraging everybody to do this. And so they're saying they're saying that you should receive some recompense for the loss and hurt that you've endured over the years, okay? So I'm not sure, who does it really apply to? You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure who does it really apply to. Is it applying to the people that's been affected by being deported, or does it also apply to the wider Windrush generations? Okay, the generation that came, and the generation that was born there, and the generations 2, 3, 4 generations deep now. Yeah, does it apply to all the generations across the board? All right. I think that we need more information around that. But it just goes on to say that, I'm not going to read all of it, but it says the compensation scheme has been established following the cases of many people in Lambeth and across the country who were faced with problems of the right to work, access to benefits and services they were entitled to, and even forced deportation as a result of the government's failure to properly support people who were legally entitled to be in the UK but did not have proper documentation. Right, so the scheme is also open to many others, including children and grandchildren of Commonwealth citizens in certain circumstances, the estates of those who are now deceased but who would have otherwise been eligible. So in other words, you should be able to still claim if your parents had passed away. You can claim on behalf of your parents, right? I feel like really we're supposed to have a really strong, our own sort of strong legal team, like our own kind of African, Caribbean, independent immigration legal team that understands these laws, because I feel like a lot of people are scared or in fear of actually getting involved in anything to do with this, because it's such a mammoth task taking on the British law, right? It's a math, and then there's this problem of this. You know, some of our people have this inferiority complex as well, right? So we think that we don't need to go there, right? But we do need to think about how to protect the rights of our people, no matter where they are on the planet Earth, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's why it's important that African Caribbean leaders need to come together. But there is a reason why they're not able to come together, why they're not able to do the things that they're supposed to do, that you would expect leaders to do, because they're not working per se on the black agenda. They're working on a European agenda, right? Which they're having to subscribe to, whether they're having to be subjected to, where they're having to be imposed of, okay? And I'm giving you an example. I'll give you a little example, okay? And there's untold examples I can give you, all right? Remember, not too long ago, in fact, in the same year that the Windrush Scandal had burst its bubble in 2018, that the monarchy, the British monarchy, the Queen, actually invited all Commonwealth members here to this country, right? She summoned them and they all ran and came over here. I don't think none of them, I never heard none of them refused not to come here. They all came, right? But whose agenda they're coming on, right? And even though that scandal had broken out, blah, 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 you know what, there was a few murmurs coming from one or two leaders, Jamaican prime minister, whatever, yeah? But there weren't nothing that said, oh, you know, pointing fingers at the British government, like what you done was wrong and all of this stuff, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So what we got is leaders in the Caribbean, Africa, they're like subservient. They're still having that, we still got that kind of mindset that leaders, that our leaders still have, I'm sorry to say this, right? But they still got this type of mindset that makes them even look inferior, because they're not acting like real black, strong African men. They're not acting like, you know what I'm saying? But then maybe there's a reason for this. And I shouldn't be making excuses for that, right? Because, yeah, they took out a load of our leaders. They've, you know, we live in a system, you know, for the last 70 years in this country, it's based on oppression. It's a form of oppression, okay? And maybe some people don't feel that, yeah? And you know, everybody's comfortable, yeah? But now, look, what's happened now? We don't feel comfortable no more, do we? Do we feel comfortable now? I bet you, guaranteed that most of these people that never thought anything bad about the British government, or wouldn't think anything, wouldn't, you know, say anything bad about the British government, would worship them, okay? Would bow down to them and all this stuff. What are they saying now? You see what I'm saying? It's a different story now, isn't it? You're feeling it now, isn't it? We're feeling what this British government's really true about. They never really cared about you, right? They only just want to use and abuse. It's all exploitation. Capitalism and so-called democracy, which is what I call demonocracy. I think a lot of better people don't understand it. And this is why I'm here. One of the reasons why I want to tune in to the younger generations, to get them to understand how this system operates and functions, and how it gets you to operate and function. That's why I'm here, to get through to the younger generation, right? The older generation and the elders, okay? I mean, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult to get through to our people, to get them to understand how this system operates and functions, because they're done indoctrinated into so many different things. Because what we need to do, we're so contaminated by this system that predicates itself on a simple concept called whiteness. Whiteness is a classification code that the Europeans have used to define the differences between them and other groups of people. So they make up 8% of the population of the planet Earth, and the rest of the 92% are non-white. So they've worked out their calculations and their mathematics, and they've come up to their own conclusions how they want to run this system and how they want to run non-white people. And that's primarily how people need to understand that the system is not working holistically for the best interest of the majority of non-white people. It doesn't work like that, right? And this is where a lot of people get caught up into the illusion where are suffering from being included. So why people say that we're suffering from exclusion from inclusion, because we're not included in whatever's policies that are having to be made, okay, around things that affect us. We don't have enough power to make our own decisions around the things that we need to do for ourselves, okay? In other words, we got another group of people making decisions for us, dictating to us, okay, and in some cases imposing on us what we need to do, because they control the laws and they control the policy. That's international laws and international policy. Now, they make these international laws and policies, they make up these humanitarian laws and policies, but do they abide by them? They don't even abide by these laws themselves. They use and abuse these laws themselves, okay? And then they use and abuse these laws against non-white people. And that's what's going on. They are dictating laws and policies. And that's primarily the biggest problem that we have when it comes to either migrating, immigrating, being immigrants, or and then getting caught up in the system, whether we're going to be so-called refugees and asylum seekers, okay? We have a lot of our people that are caught up in the system and they have nobody to stick up for them, to stand up for them, right? In so many different various ways. And maybe, like I said, we have to look at ourselves. We have to apportion some blame, okay? And we can't keep on making up excuses. We have to apportion some blame. The reality is that we have to hold our leaders to account. And the Europeans have to hold their leaders to account. We can't sort out the European leadership. How are we going to sort? We can say certain things and do certain things, but then the Europeans, right? They know, they know what's going on as well. Some of the people out there, they're not stupid, okay? They know what's going on, but the majority of people are really kind of brainwashed and conditioned themselves around following their leaders. And as far as they're concerned, they don't really care what decisions their leaders make, as long as they have that leadership. They don't care. They do want strong leadership. And I think that's one of the things that this whole thing to do with the Brexit debacle that's been going on for so many years. And this make a connection here with the Brexit and Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister of the Conservative leadership. And you notice that as soon as he became leader, because now he's got a mandate, he's got a majority MPs behind him now, okay, in the Conservative leadership. But you notice two things happened as soon as he came into power, right? The first thing, there was a terrorist attack in southwest London, Streatham. There was that happened. I think, again, like I said, a lot of these things are, as far as I'm concerned, are staged or orchestrated to sway public opinion and to bring in more laws and things like that, right? And that's me being kind of skeptical about things that happen, events that happen. So that happened, the so-called terrorist act that happened in Streatham. Nowadays, every little thing is a terrorist act now. Knife, a little knife nowadays, or attack, or an axe attack, or a van attack. It's not even bombs no more. It's just, things that people just, every day it happens, right? So that happened. And the second thing that happened is they said they were going to deport 50 people back to the Caribbean. I think that happened the second week. Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister of, I don't know what to call this country now because it's got so many names, okay? Maybe somebody could tell me what would you call this country because it's got so many names, yeah? And all the names don't really make sense. I know some of the names are under the name of being a corporation, right? But I can't call it GB. I can call it UQ, the United Kingdom, right? So those two things happened. And, you know, that whole thing around deporting black people. So two things happened, and it had nothing to do with any other group of people. Arabs, Asians, the terrorist thing, and some black people. That's primary target. Every time terrorism, it just goes off, in it, the Richter scale. Everyone's jumping up and down. Everybody's a terrorist. You know what I'm saying? That is not, is not white. Do you know what I'm saying? And then, like, with black people, now, you know, they deported black people. They turned around and spin it round and said that all those people are criminals, which is a big lie. It was a really, you couldn't imagine, there was MPs that went in Parliament, right, espousing lies. And then you turn around and talk about certain things, and they turn around and say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist because you're skeptical about what the government is doing. Because the government's always doing underhanded things, regardless of what you may think or feel about what the government's all about. The government's only interested in protecting its own interests and reputation, and that's what they do. So reports after reports, scandal after scandal, inquiry after inquiries after inquiries. If you look at all of them across the few decades that's gone past, okay, it's all been stuff that's been swept underneath the carpet to protect the Conservative leadership, to protect the Labour leadership. Right? They don't care about their own people. Let's be real. They don't care about their own people. Right? Just what I'm saying. But again, going back to this whole thing around that treating people, that people are, you know, people get the impression that we all treat the same. No, we're not all treated the same as a groups of people. Everybody knows by now, because everyone's saying it now, right? More or less. Everybody knows that there's a class structure out there based on the hierarchy of the colour of your skin. Children know this. Little children know this, right? Because the system is set in concrete. That's what they're telling you. The system is set up, this whole colour code system. So going back to the Windrush thing now, where the when our parents' generation was invited here by the British government after they're just trying to destroy the whole planet Earth, you could say, or Europe and parts of North Africa and different places like that, yeah, Southeast Asia. You know what I'm saying? It was a world war, right? Lots of millions of people died, and lots of infrastructures was destroyed. Millions and billions and trillions of pounds, right, and dollars, right? So, you know, obviously they got to rebuild all that stuff up. And that's where we came in. That's where our parents' generation came in. The Windrush generation came in. They were invited there as migrants. The problem is, we didn't have no plans, right? We didn't put certain infrastructures in place before we got here. So when they got here, the government didn't put nothing in place either. They didn't put no support systems in place, no networks, no nothing, right? And at that point, that's when our people knew their back was against the wall. It was very cold environment, very hostile. And when people are talking about hostile, what are you talking about? It was hostile back, even more hostile then. But now I grant you that relationships between the different cultures now have improved. There's no doubt about that. Yeah? There isn't so much hatred. There isn't so much offensive language and offensive abuse and assaults and attacks like what the Windrush generation had to face every day, every week, every month, every year. Until at some point the British government had to turn around and say, you know what? They had to stop that. They stopped it by bringing in laws. Those laws weren't designed to really uplift and empower black people. These race discrimination laws, racial equality laws, and all of this stuff. The prejudice and discrimination that was existing then, right, now, it still exists. It's just not so overt, but it still exists underlying around in different places. So I'm not saying that all white people are institutionally racist because you practice institutional racism without realizing, without knowing, because once you accept that you're white, do you know what I'm saying? You got no choice, really, because the government's imposed that on you. You got no choice. You have to accept that you're white. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's how you've been taught. You've been brought up like that, right? So you have to accept the system for what it is. But that by you accepting the system, then you accept that you're institutionally racist. It's disseminated in every institution, establishment, authority, industry, corporations, religious section, you name it, it's everywhere, right? It's in documents, it's in applications when you apply for a job or when you apply for a loan or whatever. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying, they tell you, oh, what color you are. They want to know what color you are. Why do they need to keep a record of that? Why is it important for them to have a record of that or to have that data? It's just so they can have control. So they control the people, how people are going to move around in different places. When it comes to migrating, they can have a certain amount of control of those people who are migrating to these different countries, right? And so people have different reasons why they migrate to another country. So the Windrush generation, their purpose was what? To migrate for economic purposes. That's why some people call them the economic migrants. That's the reason why they came in. They come just to make money, right? Because where they were coming from in the Caribbean or Jamaica, right? You're coming from colonialism, right? And then after colonialism is all about capitalism, capitalizing people's labor, resources, and giving them the least as the minimal as possible, giving them the minimal as possible to survive. That's capitalism, you know what I'm saying? There's much more to it than that, but I'm just saying that's what it is to me from what I see of it, okay? Capitalism, it kills people, it destroys people, it determines whether you live or die. It's not a very good system because it serves the capitalists. It doesn't serve the poor people. So the majority of people on the planet Earth are poor, right? In comparison to the wealthy people on the planet Earth, right? They're the smallest group. But the smallest group who has all the money, right? They have influence and they can use the money and influence to push whatever agenda or idea or what actions they want to take or things that they want to do. And, you know, money is the driving force to how this whole system is really revolving. So let me look at some stuff, okay, for you to actually be informed around, okay? And it's like I said, there's a lot of information out there around this whole thing to do with this Windrush scandal, debacle, human rights abuse and civil liberties abuse and all kinds of abuse. You know, like I said, we've been, you know, this generation, the Windrush generation going forward, have been oppressed for 70 years, all these years, and still been oppressed, okay? Because we don't have, our own governments don't have that cohesion, they don't have that structure to be able to help us. This is what's happening, and that's why we're by ourselves. We're just here by ourselves. No one's doing nothing for us, okay? Other than what we got to do for ourselves. I'm not saying that there ain't people there are some of our people in the Caribbean, Africa, they ain't connected with that. There are people that's connected with that. That's what I'm saying. But it's just small pockets in small places, in different places, right? But there isn't that cohesion and that infrastructure in place to deal with some of our problems and issues. And until that happens, we're going to continue to have problems and issues, right? We need to know that we need to have certain infrastructures in place to protect us from these immigration or migration issues, right? We shouldn't be having these problems, right? We got as much right as anybody else to go anywhere in the world and work, live, and have a life, right? We got just you know what I'm saying? But you see, it's a system, one, you know, two-tier system, basically. This what makes it classes. And I'll prove to you all the things that I'm saying, I'm going to back up, right? Because the evidence is right there before you. You don't have to go far. Now, one of the things that I was looking at to begin with is, let me just always try to remember to read out the numbers, okay, for those people who are locked in and tuned in to Sayshara's Interactive show, Sunday, 073 054 17668. All right. So the first article I'm going to go to, because I thought, you know what? How did this thing really start? How did it really start? Yeah. And I asked a load of different questions, probing. And one of the things that I came across, okay, I was really looking hard for this, right? I realized that there isn't a lot of information. The information is there, but in certain things there isn't a lot of that information. Like, for example, this article, I'm going to remember to give you the information so you know where you can go and get this information. This is a fact check. This is Channel 4 News, okay? Channel 4 News done something really interesting. I have to big up Channel 4 in a way, yeah? Because they seem like the only ones that really are interested in actually talking about it. All the other mainstream medias and all of that, they're not really saying much, right? Because I think we live in like I said, the class structure. If I can explain it to you like this, that you have a political class, you got an economic class, you got a social class, and you got a media class. You got to look at all these different things, right? You got a religious class, and so on and so on. Every type of aspects, every type of institution, establishment, authority, corporation, establishment, businesses, right? There's a class structure. There's a hierarchy, right? And some people might say, well, that's the way life is. What are you going to do about it?
You went to Africa and you told the Africans that they must all become Christians, because if they become Christians, when they die, they will go to heaven, because heaven is a wonderful place. Ladies and gentlemen, if heaven was such a good place, do you think white people will tell black people about it? So we came to England with all the expectations of being equal. Here we are in the mother country. The white man can't come to terms with it. And I'll tell you something, as I've said before. If you English people, not white people, if you're not English, you're welcome to stay in England. If you're English and you don't like the way we are running England, please.
A lot earlier than that, right? It started about 1961, even just before that. You could say around about independence, around the time that African and Caribbean countries, because we've got to connect these different links, isn't it? Okay, you got to look at things like a jigsaw puzzle, right? You got to look at things like a roulette game. We're just numbers, isn't it? In the game of roulette, we're just numbers. We're not people. We're not human. We're nothing. We're just numbers, isn't it? Right? You got to look at us in terms of how you look at the game of Monopoly. Fantastic game, Monopoly. But there's only one group of people that's controlling the banking system, isn't it? Controlling all the apparatus, controlling everything, the board, all the equipment, everything, the dice, everything, right? And you're just participants on stage. That's all you are. You're just spectators, right? And if you look at the game of chess, for example, as you know, when the Europeans are playing chess, they're playing like 3-4 moves way ahead of us, right? You got to understand that's how this thing is. It's a big game to some of these people, but it's a serious game because it means people's lives are going to be lost because of it, right? But it's played out. They play these games, right? You want to call it whatever you want to call it. But so we need to understand how they're playing and running games on us, right? And this is one of them. This was the pivotal point where, when I'm looking at, we got tonight to investigate, we got tonight to examine, we got tonight to analyze, scrutinize, question and challenge. We've got to make sound and clear observations. We can't just go around just looking up in the sky and expect things to happen. Right. So it says here, after the Second World War, the British government invited thousands of people from the Caribbean over to the UK to help rebuild the country. The new arrivals, the first of whom were brought over in the HMT Empire Windrush, as being granted full British citizenship in 1948 as members of the Commonwealth. Now, after decades living and working there, some members of the Windrush generation are being threatened with deportation. Apparently because they can't provide the document to prove how long they've been in the UK. It was reported last week that when Theresa May was Home Secretary in 2010, her department destroyed thousands of landing cards, and that for some, these cards have been the only proof exactly when they arrived in Britain. As Prime Minister's questions the following day, Jeremy Corbyn said Jeremy Corbyn is the leader of the Labour Party, and he's still the leader of the Labour Party, but he won't be for very long. But anyway, Jeremy Corbyn going to say that the government had been callous and incompetent. And I agree with him 100%. And then he goes on to say, but Mrs. May shot back. This is revealing the decision to destroy the documents was actually taken in 2009 when Labour were in government. So you see, they're blaming each other now, isn't it? Right? So who's to really blame? And would the landing cards have actually made a difference to some threatened with deportation? Now, that is a real good question. And let's be real about this, okay? This is what don't really make sense, right? This is why I know, and people, you can call me whatever you want, okay? I can take it. I'm a big man. I've got big, broad shoulders, okay? I can take criticism, right? But if I'm saying to you that this whole thing has been contrived, all right? It's been contrived, okay? Those landing cards are a record of you as a person that migrated from one country to this country, right? So this wasn't like in the 60s or in the 50s we're talking about, or even in the 70s or 80s. No, this was done in 2009. Now, please slap me and wake me up. Tell me if we don't have computer technology that can input data today or in 2009, right? Now, this is a country that has a high level of esteem when it comes to keeping records. Right? So what happened here when they said that they destroyed these landing cards? Very interesting to find out what they're actually saying, right? But it still doesn't make sense. But listen to this. 2009, the timeline. Let's look at the timeline. 2009, destruction of documents begins. In June 2009, the UK Border Agency approved the business case for disposing of millions of paper records. The Home Office told us that it was then that the landing cards, or registry slips as they are officially known, were earmarked for destruction. The work began in December of that year. Alan Johnson was the Labour Home Secretary at the time. When asked if he knew that the registry slips were being destroyed, he said no. It was an administrative decision taken by the UK Border Agency. Now, let me stop there, because they talk a lot about this UK Border Agency destroying these documents. And it's kind of like they're kind of blaming them for it. And that the government seems to be extricating itself from any form of responsibility or accountability. Right, 2010, registry slips destroyed. Although the decision was made in 2009, it wasn't until 2010 in October when the Conservative Lib Dem coalition government were in power that the registry slips were actually disposed of. The Home Office described this as an operational decision. You see all the different excuses coming out, right? Theresa May was Home Secretary at the time, but we haven't seen evidence either way to suggest that she knew about or signed off the decision. 2012, hostile environment policy introduced. In May 2012, Theresa May declared the aim is to create here in Britain a really hostile environment for illegal migration. Now, you see, this was coming out of her own mouth. Right? This is not no fantasy stuff. Yeah? They did it. Clearly, we're going to make this environment hostile. The government, the British government said this out of their own mouth. And everybody went along with it to a certain degree. Some people, reacted to it. But in Parliament, I'm talking about in the parliamentary arena. But mostly everybody accepted it. Anyway, it goes on to say that in May 2012, she declared a hostile environment against illegal migration. So that was, as soon as she said that, that was just giving a green light that basically they could just run down black people. These are immigration agencies, right? And the things that they did was a human rights abuse. I don't care what anybody said. I don't care what you want to say, how you want to put it, how you want to pay it, right? You got these immigration border agencies, or whatever they want to call themselves. They think they're law amongst themselves. In fact, they're supposed to be more powerful than even the police, right? They rush black people's houses undetected, without any notice. Suddenly, they just turn up your door and they just take you. You'd be lucky if you can even take anything with you. That's how they was dealing with my people, right? And they just bang you up in these vans, right, and cart you down to one of these detention centers, right? And when you go to these detentions, no one understands the process. No one knows what black people have to go through with this system in terms of, this whole situation that we find ourselves in and continue to find ourselves in, right? When it comes to all this stuff to do with immigration, migration, immigration, and being asylum seekers or refugees, right? And, all of these things are systems. All these different systems make up a part of the bigger system. But who's controlling all this stuff, right? Anyway, it goes on to say that and sure enough, the Immigration Act 2014 brought in new powers to help the Home Office and other government agencies make life difficult for illegal migrants, right? But many have claimed that those same policies have been unfairly damaging and intrusive to people who are here legally, including the Windrush generation. Last week, Jeremy Corbyn called for the Prime Minister to repeal the legislation and urge the government to stop the rhetoric which has become blaming immigrants for problems they didn't create. Now, whether people love or hate Jeremy Corbyn, right? I'll be honest with you, I don't deal with politics. I don't deal with these politicians. I don't trust anything they're saying, anything they're about. Yeah, I know what the parliamentary system's all about, right? I know it's not for the poor people. It's not set up for poor people, right? It's meant to, right? But if you look at the etymology of the word democracy, for example, which demo means common people and crass means rule, right? And it sounds, it's all the semantics really, but the reality is language is you know, doesn't mean what it says it means, right? You got to understand that we live in a very, very highly class system. It's been like that for hundreds of years. It's an institution, right? Where the elites, the rich, the ruling classes, the highly powerful, rich, wealthy people, okay, they're only interested in protecting their own interests, which is their wealth. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's nothing wrong with that. The problem becomes when these same people use their money and the position and the power and the wealth to manipulate people, to take advantage of people, to exploit people, to destroy people's lives. That's where the problem comes, all right? And it's ongoing and it's consistent with what's happening today. So we shouldn't be surprised about what's happening. Me, I'm not surprised. I said this was happening a long time ago, right? I could see this, right? In fact, growing up, I didn't think I was... hold on. Where's the phone now? Hold on. I can't see. I don't even know where the phone is. Sorry. Where's it gone? Right, apologies, caller. You're going to have to call back on. I had the phone in my hand now. I can't see it. I don't know where it is. Because it's dark. Hold on. Right, apologies. I don't really know where the phone is. I can't even see it. Where is it? It's somewhere anyway. It's plugged into a charger somewhere. All right, so look, apologies. I know someone's trying to get through, and it's not fair that you can't get through. So let me see if I can retrieve the phone somewhere. If I can only see where it is. All right, so yeah, I've got it. Okay, so look, apologies. You're welcome to the phone back again. All right, so we're here. This is Sayshara Sunday Interactive show, live here in sunny London, England. All right, telephone numbers are 07305 417 688. All right, let me get it quick because it's driving me nuts, this ringtone. All right, so here we are. Sayshara's here. Burchak, I can see your name.
Oh.
Right, you're the first caller. You're always the first caller, isn't it? So what's happening? You have to be very short, right, and brief, yeah? And
I'm fine. Yeah. About the caste system and about the things. Now, you know also now after England has come out of the EU now, they will deport more people back. They will deport more people back. And I was saying this on the last Haru show he had on the other community station. I said that one day we're going to all have to go back to our own countries.
Why'd you say that?
We will.
No, but why'd you say that? Why'd you say that?
Because they're going to start sending people back.
Yeah, no, but why?
Because there will be no, the European Court of Human Rights is better. They want a British Bill of Rights, which is not going to be the same.
Yeah, well,
but
how do you know that? How do you know? I mean, you're just making assumptions, really, isn't it?
No, it's not assumptions. They will throw all the articles out. All of the ones that, unless they haven't done a crime, unless there are peaceful things, they're not supposed to be thrown out as a last resort. But now they will throw all the articles out, and it's not just assumptions. It's just what we have come to conclusions. I've been to meetings, I've been to many things, and I've come to this conclusion that they will throw every single article out because now they're out the EU. They're not things from the EU anymore. They're out. They're free.
Yeah, well, officially, they will be free. I don't think they'll ever be. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they'll ever be free. They'll always have some form of relationship, regardless, right? But I understand what you're saying. Officially, they'll be free at the end of this year, isn't it? Going to 2021.
Yes, they'll be, but they will. There's always a relation with America. So they will be free, but there's no deal trade deal. Obviously, they will have a trade deal with other countries, but they will think with America because they can throw out something like a big thing like Article 17, then they can throw things out, the other articles which are good ones, which swings your black, which protects black people, which protects people to protest, which protects people to things. So, yeah, having said that, the prior, a new paragraph, the thing about caste system, about caste. We're all in the caste system. You know, this is started in India and this is all over the world.
Let me stop you there for a second, yeah, because you're mixing two words together, right? I said class system. You're talking about caste system, CASTE, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm talking about class, CLASS, right? Now, that caste system is a different subject, different topic completely, all right? So let's stick to what we're talking about now, about the immigration and what you're saying and Brexit, how you tied that up, linked that up with Brexit.
Yeah.
That was good. But this caste thing, I'm not really talking about that.
I see. But basically, they always love to put people, always want to divide people, always want to put people different. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. And then people have complex, you know, I'm this class, I'm that class.
Yeah.
Everyone's supposed to be equal.
Right.
So just...
Yeah, that's a good thing. So now you've kind of tied up that caste thing with the class thing. Yeah. And so that's the connection, right? Because obviously, you mentioned about India. Obviously, India is very, very class structured, based on the caste system. But it's not like that in all countries, right?
I mean, like with different countries, like it's like that. But
yeah, but it is a problem. I agree with you 100%. There is a problem, and that does need to change because people actually changing the way they look to kind of fit into that caste kind of structure because it's classist, isn't it? Right? Because the people because like in places like India, for example, right, you could say that the what they class as the fairest person is the ones that are more privileged, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how that caste system works in those different places, yeah, in India and different places, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So, anything else you want to say, Bertak, before I move on?
Oh, anything else? Say that it's all going to be. It's now all a huge mess now that we're in because now that coming back to it, England's come out. They would be able to do more things.
It's not just England that's come out. They're talking about the actual United Kingdom, right, or the whole of the country, including Scotland, Ireland, and Wales.
United Kingdom's come out. They come out. Now it's going to be like in that year you're going to see more things change. More cuts going to happen. More things. More human rights are going to go. So basically, you need to be prepared. We all need to be prepared of what's going to come next. You know,
absolutely.
What's going to come next? Because after this, there's going to be preparation for what they're gonna do next, because it's like a chess game, yeah. So it has to be be in preparation. You have to know what to say, what words to say to the people. Someone needs to talk to these people on the top. Whoever these organizations are, they need to talk to these people on the top. And obviously, because otherwise you're gonna have a very hard time, and they will cut back on every single things, including, sorting out problems.
Okay.
Normal people come here, immigrants come here from countries, from war-torn countries.
Mm-hmm.
People come here,
yeah.
And they come here. They work hard. They different cultures, but now they want to deport people back. Asians have already got a plan in case when they deport them back.
Did you phone before just a minute ago, Berchak? Was it you? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, did you phone just a minute ago?
No, I didn't phone. This is my phone.
All right, so look, Bird
Somebody
Chat.
else phoned.
Okay, so look, phone back, okay, and tune in, all right, and then come back to me, all right?
Yeah, so that's what I want to say. They've already got a plan in place. You know, they've got their shops and things. They'll just move it to other, and they get richer and richer. But I don't know the other communities where they got a plan. But it's just that I heard in the message that your community don't even have a plan like that. Like, it's just people saying our community's naive and this and that. You know, I'm just a messenger boy. I just
Okay.
read up on things and then.
All right,
you
so
know,
Bird Chat,
I
you
just
said
do-
enough, so I'm going to say anybody
Yeah.
wants to reply to whatever you're saying, they're welcome to. And telephone numbers are 073 05 417 668. Thanks, Bird Chat. Much appreciated for your call.
Peace, I'm out.
Peace, respect. All right. So good. All right. So at least we know the phone's kind of live, right? So there you have it. So now going back to this document, this article, going through the timeline, we just finish off the timeline. We said that, sure enough, we stopped at in May 2012. Theresa May declared the aim is to create, and this is she quoted in this, all right? The aim is to remember Prime Minister Theresa May, ex-Prime Minister now, right? Said that the aim is to create here in Britain a really hostile environment for illegal migration, yeah? So, in 2012, hostile environment policy introduced, and basically, again, they introduced the Immigration Act, they updated the Immigration Act to 2014 and brought in new powers to help the Home Office and other government agencies to make life difficult for illegal migrants. But many have claimed that these policies have been unfairly damaging and intrusive to people who are illegally. So, I mentioned about Jeremy Corbyn and what Jeremy Corbyn's all about. Like I said, Jeremy Corbyn didn't fit that class structure. That's the reason why they give Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader presently right now, but obviously he's going to lose that position very soon. But, you know, because of the last election, right? That what's happening is that there has been a witch hunt where the establishment just basically ganged up on Jeremy Corbyn because he doesn't fit the class, right? He doesn't come from the same background as these, you know, these classist MPs, right? He doesn't fit. He's a lot of his policies and a lot of things that he's all about in the past and stuff like that. They hold them things against him because he's not. They say he's weak because he won't push the nuclear button. He says he won't push the nuclear button. They say he's weak, right? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. To me, he shows more strong character than anything else, right? But because he doesn't fit the class, right, status or the status quo for the class, the political class, they slag him off all day long. You see, they just drop bombs on him. They throw rockets on him and rocks and all kinds of things at him to pull him down, and they push him down. This is what they did. Yeah, destroyed him. He couldn't match that. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't match that. And funny enough, right? Because he's liberal in it around certain issues. Okay, like he's liberal with loads of different groups, right? Liberal with the Palestinians, they don't like that, right? He's liberals with black people, they don't like that. You know what I'm saying? He's liberal around, like I said, you know, the nuclear bomb thing. You know, they're liberal about whether he's going to attack other countries and all of this stuff, right? So that's why they don't like him. You know what I'm saying? They don't like him because he just not fit the status quo, and they basically just trying to find a way to get rid of him, basically, right? And Labour's in a crisis. Then he goes on to say, this article goes on to say, why were the documents destroyed in the first place? Okay, so fact check. Okay, remember saying you can go and get this information. It's fact check, Channel 4 News. Okay, who destroyed the Windrush landing gears? Okay, all right. So we're talking about the Windrush generation 1948 versus the Windrush Scandal 2018. And it goes into saying in this article, why were the documents destroyed in the first place? Fact Check understands that the UK Border Agency decided to destroy a raft of personal documents in 2009 because of its legal obligations under the Data Protection Act 1998. Now, that's the excuse that they're saying why the data agency is saying that they had to do it. See, that they're sort of shifting the blame, right? But now the data, these UK Border Agency, okay, they're saying that under the Data Protection Act of 1998, they got to destroy these documents, right? Because of privacy and all of this stuff, right? Right, nothing wrong with that, right? The problem is the UK Border Agency more powerful than the British government? What are we talking about here? This looks like shifting the buck, right? Then it goes on to say in this article that the Act sets out 8 protection principles. The 5th rule is particularly relevant here. It says that the personal information mustn't be kept for longer than is strictly necessary, right? You're telling me, right, that, again, like I said, maybe I should just finish this off, then we talk about it, yeah? Anyway, it goes on to say, are the landing cards really that important? An Home Office spokesman told Fact Check that in the judgment of the UK Border Agency, the information on the slips was of limited value and not sufficient to justify continued retention. And that's debatable, right? To me, that's questionable, right? That the UK Border Agency can say that because they're not part. They're part of the government, department, but they're not the ones to make these kind of decisions as far as I'm concerned. Do you get what I'm saying? This is really, I mean, fair enough, they might have a bit of power, but come on, man. Anyway, it says they went on to say, so it would be misleading and inaccurate to suggest that registration slips would therefore have a bearing on immigration cases whereby Commonwealth citizens are proving residency in the UK. But is it really that simple? We asked Damien Krishna, a barrister practicing in immigration law, who was also a Labour councillor between 1998 and 2002, for his take. And he quotes and says that the Home Office is really straining the meaning of limited, unquote. There's, unquote, this is the view that the landing cards aren't themselves show continuity of UK residence and can't alone provide enough evidence for a biometric visa or citizenship grant. That would usually be right, but in conjunction with other evidence of UK presence, since they could certainly evidence the claimed UK length of stay. Right? So that's another way to look at it. Anyway, it goes to say that Adrian Berry, barrister at Garden Court Chambers and chair of the Immigration Law Practitioners Association, agrees it is misleading to suggest that landing cards have no value. The cards record the arrival of a person, the date of arrival, and where the person was traveling from. That's it. It's a record of that person, right? So I don't understand how they could destroy that thing, innit? Right? So this is what I'm saying, how it seems to me very contrived, and it was deliberate. If they destroyed it, they deliberately destroyed it, right? Because to me, it would have been a lot easier to be on the safe side, right? And to cover so many different areas just to get that information. They talk about they couldn't store it. They reckon that one of the excuses they said that is they didn't have space. That's the first thing I heard when they said that they destroyed it. They said, oh, we didn't have no space, you know. What are they talking about? They're quite happy to keep the Elgin marbles of the Greeks' pantheon, right? That's going to take up a whole museum, right? Just for show. They're quite happy to defend that. They're quite happy to defend that, right? But they're not happy. They're not concerned about something that they should have defended, which is keep records of people that come into your country. Now, all of a sudden, they got this paranoia now, this phobia about immigration. So what are you talking about? You're contradicting yourself. You sound really stupid, isn't it? Right? You 1 minute, you're telling people, oh, you really, you really care about immigration. And next minute, you're getting rid of immigration cards or anything to do with immigration cards. It doesn't really make sense, right? So here we go. He goes on to say, nearly done with this article. He goes on to say that Adrian, he goes on to say, the barrister said that, he goes on to say that after they are the first official UK record of a person's existence life, yeah? And like UK birth certificate, they tell you when a person's presence is first recorded in the UK. They serve to prove when a person arrived and create the foundation for her or his personal account of the life in the UK thereafter. So those landing cards, alongside other documents, could help someone threatened with deportation to build their case. But what about people for whom the landing cards were the only remaining records of their arrival in Britain? There's that situation facing a number of Windrush migrants. You see, the thing is that there's so many things that go into this. It's much more complicated than a lot of people think it is, right? But what the immigration, the British government has done, right, by creating this hostile environment is just said, they made a broad sweeping statement and basically said that they just deport anybody. It doesn't matter where they come from. They don't care. This deport. So basically, every generation was affected, right? Because they were just looking at numbers. They weren't looking at each individual case. You need to understand this. To talk about deporting people, okay, you have to look at each individual case separately. That's where the problem becomes. That's why it becomes more complicated. The government doesn't want to do that because it costs money, costs time, and all of this stuff. So what they do, they make a broad sweep of people from the Africans and Caribbeans, right? Regardless of their background, how long they've been there, what they've been doing, what job they're in, what status they're in, how much money they got from what they ain't got, what job they're doing, what lifestyle they got. They don't care about that, right? They're just looking at your name. They're seeing somehow they're just looking at your name, looking at whether you got these documents. If you haven't got it, tough. We come around your house, right? And we need to deport you, right? And you ain't gonna have no time for a lawyer or legal aid, which you can't get much nowadays, right? Because they set the system up now, so poor people can't even have legal aid. They can't get fair representation, right? So now they're trying to find ways to really take more advantage of people in terms of protecting people's rights by taking away legal aid. And legal aid is a right. It's a right. Yeah, it's a civil right. Okay, to have legal. Everybody has a right to have legal aid and some form of representation in court, right? But they make it look like that you got to pay for it now. You got to pay for everything, right? And that's partly to do with capitalism, right? Right, and the way they drive capitalism, through you. So anyway, just want to conclude on this, all right? It says that the situation facing a number of Windrush migrants, many of whom came over on their parents' passports, who have lost their official documents. Damien Kushner again, the historic relevance is quoted saying is that the historic relevance is that the migrant would have picked up more visa rights on entry depending on whether they arrived before 1962, 1968 or 1971 acts came into force, right? So this is what I'm saying, right? So you see I think primarily if you look at this whole thing in it, right? From independence, a lot of things cut through from independence of African and Caribbean countries, right? And that's when this whole thing around hostile environment became even more entrenched in the government to find ways to control people from these Commonwealth countries, right? Anyway, the question was asked. The problem they got right is that the question of access to public funds, public services, and issuing biometric visas as a gateway to these might well depend partly on the date of arrival and the landing card evidence. He said the number of real-world applicants for whom a landing card would materially alter their status now is very low, but not zero. And he asked the question, would this be happening if the government hadn't introduced the hostile environment policy? And he goes on to say, it's possible that when the UK Border Agency decided to destroy the landing cards in 2009, they were indeed of limited value, to use the Home Office phrase, but when the hostile environment policy came in 4 years later, they suddenly took on a new significance. Adrian Berry gave us his view. The destruction of the landing cards made the lives of those affected more difficult. But in the context, it was the hostile environment policy requiring proof of immigration status to access hospital treatment, benefit, and the like, to which the Windrush generation were and are entitled, coupled with a Home Office suspicious turn of mind towards those who sought to prove that their entitlement, that they interfered with people's ordinary lives, so glossy. Damien Christian points out that it was not considered much of an issue before the hostile environment, but there were isolated cases even before that. He added, another unmentioned aggravator was a 2012 change whereby those with long UK residence but no proven visa used to be able to gain settlement straight away. Now they must complete 10 years and 4 visas to gain settlement with no interim access to public funds. This is the fact-check verdict, okay? So basically, I'm going to talk about also stuff around, what happens to these deportees. As time goes by, I'll talk about that. Anyway, it goes on to say that both Labour and the Conservatives have accused each other of being responsible for the destruction of Windrush landing cards. The decision to dispose of them was taken in 2009 under Labour, although the then Home Secretary says that he didn't sign it off. The actual destruction of the documents took place under the Conservatives when Theresa May was Home Secretary. The documents were destroyed as part of the UK Border Agency's legal obligations under the Data Protection Act. At that time, the Border Agency didn't consider the documents to be of sufficient value to keep hold of. Of course they wouldn't. Come on, man. Why would they care about it? It's not for the UK Border Agency to care about it. It's for the government. Do you get what I'm saying? You see how they... can explain this, huh? Anyway, it goes, I'm going to conclude on this, right? It goes, only later in 2013 was the hostile environment policy introduced by the Conservative Lib Dem coalition. Additional changes in 2012 added to the pressure on migrants in the UK. Had they not been destroyed, the landing cards now be used alongside other documents to help someone threatened with deportation to build a case for staying. It gets trickier when we talk about people who have no record of their time in the UK. The number of people for whom a landing card would materially alter their status now is very low, but not zero. Nevertheless, it seems like the destruction of landing cards would not be a significant problem for the Windrush generation if the hostile environment policy hadn't been introduced. So the two works hand in hand, right? Without those landing cards, right, which they destroyed, that's one problem, right? And then the second big problem is that to dovetail this whole thing is that they bring out these hostile environment policies in 2014. So obviously, if you bring out policies in 2014, okay, right, that says that you need to have these documents, because I think they said that you needed at least 4 pieces of paper, and they wanted X amount every year that you've been in, and all of this stuff. Now, who hoards records of paperwork? Right? Most people, all they keep is their driving license and their passport. What other stuff do you want? You might have bank statements, and that's it. But other than that, why would you want to order all this stuff for 5 years, for 10 years? All this paperwork, 5, 10, 15, 20. No, that's your job. That's your job. That's the government's job, right? Now, the government's, right, could easily have dealt with this easily. This whole thing could have been avoided. We need to be looking at how could this whole thing been avoided in order for us to learn our lessons, right? But I'm going to say this, yeah, that was deliberate. It was contrived, okay? So they can have this policy in 2014, so they can do what they want to do. It's just something that they subtly put these things into place, isn't it? Subtly. But they're leading up to a bigger thing, isn't it? Right? The problem that we got is that we don't have nobody, we don't have no voice, we don't have nobody representing us, whether they come from the Caribbean or Africa, right? When it comes to some of our biggest problems and issues, right? And that's just a fact. That's what it is. It doesn't matter how many MPs you want to get into the parliament. If they belong to Labour or Conservative, they can only say so much for you as a black person, right? But whose responsibility is it? It's our responsibility as a group of people for number one. And it should be, right, more important, well, just as important as a collective, as a group of people, down to the African and Caribbean governments. This is what I'm saying, that they're supposed to have infrastructures in place to deal with immigration, migration, refugees, and asylum seekers. Who are they depending on to do that? The United Nations. The United Nations is what? What is the United Nations? The United Nations is not... The United Nations is not supposed to be about... Who elected them anyway? Who elected the United Nations to run the whole world anyway? Right? Yeah? On what mandate were they given to run the whole world? Initially, the United Nations, right, which before were called the League of Nations, were just a few countries, European countries, right, became big. They became big. After World War I, they created the League of Nations, right? After World War I. The premise of the League of Nations was that, you know, just in a short context, right? They were all about peace and just avoiding these, you know, European countries fighting each other and destroying and killing people's lives and all that, which is all good stuff, right? But what's happened now is that the League of Nations changed. Well, that you could say the League of Nations never worked. Let's be real. The League of Nations never worked because what happened? A few years after World War I think it was about 20 years later, World War II. So the League of Nations didn't work. It was dysfunctional, right? But then after World War II, what did they do? They created another organization and they called it the United Nations, right? Right? But what are the United Nations all about, right? What is the premise of, what is their role and the premise? What was the premise of why the United Nations even exist? Is because to stop wars, to have peace, right? Not to run the world in everything that they're saying and doing all this. This is what they're doing right now, right? They're the ones that's talking about Agenda 21, right? Yeah? New World Order, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. They're the ones that's talking about it, right? What are they talking about? They're supposed to be talking about things to make this whole planet a better place, but they're not, right? They're wholly using the United Nations as a front, right, to cause chaos, destruction, and disorder. That's all they're doing, and they've been doing from the time of conception. Just be real. Just look at it, right? There's no breakouts of big wars now, but there's these proxy little wars and conflicts all over the place. Guns proliferated all over the place. Criminal activities all over the place. Corruption all over the place, right? All kinds of deviant sexual kind of behavior is all over the place, right? They are, like I said, they're the ones that's orchestrating and causing a lot of problems. They're the ones, right? They're the ones that's financing a lot of stuff in it, right? Right? They're the ones that's putting money everywhere. They control the IMF, the World Trade Bank, all the alphabet gangs you can think of. They're the biggest organizations on this planet Earth, right? But we depend on the United Nations. For what? To destroy people's lives? You've got to be kidding me. Right? All right, so you heard that, right? That last article, like I said, Channel 4, who destroyed the Windrush landing cards, fact check, right? And that came out 24th of April 2018, right? So that was necessary for you to know that, in order for you for us to paint a picture, to understand the processes of what the things that's been going on. Well, I think I've got a text, okay? I'm getting it. I'm getting there, all right? All right, let me see if I can get this text. What's happening? Okay. 483. Greetings, Sayshara. Great show in relation to your subject of the Windrush. The UK elites no longer need black people to do their dirty work. Many of our people have become too comfortable and integrated into society, but soon they will get a reawakening. They will get a awakening. The European can kick out black people at any time, regardless if you have a British passport or not. The people that voted Brexit voted solely to get rid of non-EU immigrants. Example, the Commonwealth black immigrants, not EU migrants. Great show. We'll try and call later on next week, Makwan. Respect Makwan. And that's true, right? So, and I will vouch that the reality is, okay, I mean, a lot of people, they try to downplay this whole thing, the Brexit thing and the immigration and the connection with the immigration thing and the whole link between Conservative and Labour, right? You know, Labour kind of sort of, you know, Jeremy Corbyn saying that he's kind of like a soft touch and all of this stuff, okay? He's too empathetic towards other cultures and you know, stuff like that, right? And that's why they call him a weak leader. But in reality, I think he was much more stronger. Even though, like I said, I don't deal with the politics and the politicians and all of that. I'm not in favour of any of these politicians, parties or anything like that, because they're just parties of the same bird, same wings of the same bird, right? Party, you can name it, Labour, Conservative, right? It's the same wing of the same bird, right? So it's control opposition. So whether Labour or Conservatives are in, right, even more for their own people, it makes no difference. They just got to go through the mill of voting every 4 years, right, just to show that they got a right to have a vote. You got a right to have a vote, but does it really do anything? Does it? You can vote for one day and the next 4 years, yeah, they just peel all over you. They just roll over you. And that's what they do. I've seen it. Right, I've experienced it. I've seen what these governments do. They make a long list of promises, broken promises, right? They're broken before they even made them, right? Because politicians got to know how to lie. They got to know how to con people. That's what politricon is, to con, to trick, to con, to deceive, right? That's what they're there for. The politicians, they know, they're even debating about changing the parliamentary system. They're debating about it. Right? They're debating about getting rid of some of the law. There's too many members in the parliamentary system, right? Just to run this country. It costs the taxpayer a lot of money, right? They're not getting much for it. In fact, very little. But what you find is that the people in this country, they show worship their leaders, right? They trust them to do whatever they want, right? As long as you're strong, that you show strong leadership. That's all they're interested in. They don't care if you're killing millions of people or millions of people died and all of that. They don't care about that. General public don't care about that. As long as they're safe, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's what it is, right? They don't care about how many people get killed in other countries, how many people they bomb up, how many people they support in proxy wars, how many people they arm in these proxy wars. Half of these countries in the world wouldn't have guns or weapons, okay, if they weren't proliferated by these Western European industries that make these weapons in the first place. There wouldn't be no weapons, right? They give everybody everybody that's non-white, they give them weapons. Kill yourself. Go and have a good time killing yourselves, right? Because this is a killing field. Yeah, this whole system is based on warism, which is a killing field, okay, right? There's so many different ways that you can die. So many different ways, right? Anyway, I'm going to go to my next article just to add to the case around, it's not just a scandal, it's an abuse on my parents' generation, the Windrush generation, across all generations. We've been abused, right? Used and abused, battered and bruised. Okay, we've been oppressed as a group of people, right? Every rights that we had, that our parents or our grandparents fought for, and our great parents, so on and so on, fought for, they've slowly been taken away from. They're stripping those rights away. So you become more and more powerless, right? And maybe you want that. Maybe you like the government controlling you and dictating you and dominating you, yeah, and telling you what to do from what not to do. You know what I'm saying? Huh? Maybe you like that. Maybe you enjoy that. All right. So I also want to talk about the new point system, the new immigration point-based system. I'm going to touch on that later on, all right, before I wrap up, all right? So look, let me just see if I can get up another article just to show you where we are. So it says there, the Windrush, you can go to this one as well. Windrush Scandal, Home Office, reckless and defensive, leaked reviews, fines. All right. So remember now, right? They've got a report. Let me read this article because this one's short, right? But the clues are there. There's little clues that you can pick through, right? Again, Channel 4 News, to get you to get these pieces of jigsaw. Jigsaw is a really, fantastic board game, right? You understand jigsaw, you understand how the pieces of the puzzle to understand how these things work. You've got to understand. You've got to read into things. You've got to read, right? If you don't read things, you don't know anything, innit? A lot of people think they know things, but they don't read things. So how do they even know anything? You don't read anything. Do you know what I'm saying? A lot of people just follow what everybody else is saying. That's what's happening, right? And they're not reading into things. They're not looking into things, okay? So generally all we do is regurgitate what somebody else is saying. That's all we do, right? But generally, most people, they don't know anything, innit? Right? It's only when you start to read into things, when you look into things, when you investigate things, when you examine things, when you question things, when you challenge things, when you scrutinize things, when you make thorough observations like a scientist. You are a social scientist. Just because you don't need no label to tell you what you need to be, what you are. You're naturally that. You're naturally a scientist, social scientist of the planet Earth. You need to tap in to those energy sources in it that will awaken all of these different faculties that you have, these attributes that you have, right? But the system is designed to dumb down all these faculties, these attributes, so you don't think, right? It doesn't want you to think. They don't want you to think because they want to do the thinking for you, right? They make the decision for you, right? So, Windrush Scandal, Home Office reckless and defensive leak reviews. The Home Office has been accused. This is by Simon Israel, right? Senior Home Affairs correspondent, 27th of June 2019. It says the Home Office has been accused of being reckless and of failing in their legal duty to counter racial discrimination by Home Office Commission review into the Windrush Scandal. The Home Office has been accused of being reckless and of failing in their duty to counter racial discrimination. This is by a Home Office Commission review into the Windrush Scandal. Channel 4 News has obtained damning extracts from a draft titled Windrush Lessons Learned Review, which reveals the departments failed to monitor or effectively evaluate the effectiveness and impact of compliant environment measures. The review adds, this appears particularly reckless considering the significant warnings that the department was given about their potential consequences. The exclusive report also reveals numerous recommendations to right the wrongful detention and deportation of some members of the Windrush generation. In the draft review, led by independent advisory Wendy Williams, right, set up to establish what went wrong and how to prevent it happening again. Now, this is the review, right, that they're going to sweep underneath your very, very own eyes, right under the radar of most of our people. They don't know what's happening, right? But they're going to sweep this report, this review right under, right? It's supposed to be out already, but it's not. They're stalling, right? They're stalling on this review, right? Yeah? So, what does it say here? It says there in this Channel 4 article, the exclusive report was, it says the draft review led by independent advisory Wendy Williams set up to establish what went wrong and how to prevent it happening again. This is what They say this all the time. You think about all the reviews and reports and inquiries, they say, oh, we need to learn from this, we need to learn from that, right? Right? But they scapegoat the whole thing, innit? Because they don't want to be responsible or held accountable. All right. She goes to describe the culture in the Home Office as deaf, defensive, ignoring warnings, and unwilling to learn from past mistakes, and writing of a defensive culture that results in an unwillingness to learn from past mistakes. She writes, whilst everyone I spoke to was rightly appalled by what happened, this was often juxtaposed with a self-justification, even in the form of it was unforeseen, unforeseeable, and therefore unavoidable, or a failure on the part of individuals to prove their status. The review into the Windrush Scandal focuses on the impact of Theresa May's immigration laws in 2014 and 2016 that brought in measures intended to create a hostile environment for illegal immigrants. Not just legal. Anyway, 6 years ago, her message was solely aimed at the growing clamour to get tougher on immigrants. But draft extracts from the review obtained by Channel 4 News claim that the implementation was flawed because it failed to adequately consider the past. It failed to adequately consider the impact on people. It also failed to adequately mitigate equalities issues, including the potential for discrimination, particularly in housing. The draft review also contained numerous recommendations, including the suggestion that all Home Office staff need to be educated in the country's colonial past. Right. Yeah? Anyway, it says, Wendy Williams writes, the Home Office should ensure that all its existing and new staff learn about the history of the UK and its relationship with the rest of the world, including British.
Went to Africa and you told the Africans that they must all become Christians, because if they become Christians, when they die, they will go to heaven, because heaven is a wonderful place. Ladies and gentlemen, if heaven was such a good place, do you think white people will tell black people about it? So we came to England with all the expectations of being equal. Here we are in the mother country. The white man can't come to terms with it. But I'll tell you something, as I've said before. If you English people, not white people, if you're not English, you're welcome to stay in England. If you're English and you don't like the way we are running England, please leave.
It was watered down. Right, this is by the Telegraph, okay? So now we get a different view on the same report, right? Now, this is not me saying this, right? I would have said it, and I've done said it a long time ago. Right? This system is institutionally racist from the top down, right? People want to debate that and argue about that. Go ahead, knock yourself out, innit? Yeah? There's nothing to argue about. There's nothing to debate. It's just a fact of life, okay? Let's get real, all right? And let's get up with that, innit? All right? It's not going to go away because you just heard it. They're saying to themselves that they need to get, the government needs to get the act together. There's different departments, they don't understand the story, they don't understand the narrative, they don't understand history, the relationship between the Caribbean and Africa and colonialism, and how all these things tied up and has affected, it's affected us, right? In some shape or form, in some way or the other. It's all these things that happened in the past has affected us. It's a knock-on effect, right? But because we could talk about reparations and what reparations is about. Yeah, a lot of these problems and issues have not been dealt with and not been resolved. Okay, so basically they're swept underneath the carpet and they just pile up into a mountain of problems and issues. And so this is just something that was bound to happen. It was inevitable. Okay, so I've got a couple of texts. Let me just cap on that for a minute. Okay. And 753 says, Green Sayshara. My very good topics. My question is, do you think the coronavirus is a cover-up on the 5G networks? Yeah, yeah, that's a good one, you know, because I've heard something that there's a possibility now. I have talked about 5G. In fact, if you go to YouTube, to my YouTube channel, spell SAY space Shara SHARA. If you go into my YouTube channel, I talked about 5G and all these different things that are nothing more than EMF radiation killing you off softly. That's all that is. Subtle but deadly, right? Do your own research about 5G, right? I know all about 5G and what the impact on people's lives and how it could affect people's lives, okay? And that they've not done enough studies, right, or research on the effects on human beings, right, that says to me that this 5G is safe for human beings, right, to have as a product, to have as a facility to use in people's everyday lives, right? But anyway, but then that is another subject. But anyway, it also talks about, this text says 519, also talks about also cover up to kick out our race using the Windrush Scandal. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying about that. There is this whole Windrush thing is a big cover up, isn't it? Right? And they're trying to, you see, in 2018 they were exposed, okay? They was exposed to this thing, innit? Yeah. What the immigration agency or department's doing, right? But it's the government, right? But this article was explaining a little bit things a bit more, so you understand, right? Okay, so you can go to the Telegraph. This was printed and published in February the 21st this year, 2020, right? The Telegraph. This is not me saying it. Again, institutional racism all day long. What are you talking about? Windrush draft report that called Home Office intentionally racist was watered down. Not a surprise there, huh? The independent, is there such a thing as independent review? I've not seen anything that's independent that was really independent. What are you talking about? They spin these words. We've got to watch this language, isn't it? Because it's so deceptive. You've got to understand, you've got to read into whatever they're saying. Because they don't ever mean what they're saying. They don't say what they mean. Right? You see, man talk with snake, like a snake, innit? All right. The independent review into the Home Office hostile environment policy was set up following the Windrush Scandal in 2018. It says a review that found the Home Office was institutionally racist, right, over its treatment of migrants have been watered down according to a report. The independent review into the Home Office hostile environment policy, which was supposed to be published in March last year, yeah, that was last year, right? Last year was 2019, right? All right, still not here, right? Why are they stalling? Anyway, it says here, so the report hasn't been, published since last year. It was supposed to be out last year, March. It says in 2000, so it was revealed that Caribbean migrants to Britain after World War II were deported despite having the right to live in the UK. In the early draft of the report, led by Inspector of Constabulary Wendy Williams, the Home Office was described as institutionally racist. But in later version, this characterization was removed, according to sources reported by the Times. Let me stop there. Now, what I find is that they're trying to downplay this whole thing around people saying, especially where black people's concerned, right? And, being affected the most, right? When it comes to, I don't like to use the word racism, but to me it's ageism. You hate us. You hate black people because of the colour of their skin. You're indoctrinated. That's how you're indoctrinated by the system that disseminates that type of mindset. Right? The government do it. All institutions does it. The church does it. Everybody, they all do it. Right? But it's like promoting whiteness, but it's subtle, isn't it? It's not. Yeah, I'm not. You know, I'm proud to be white, but I'm not boasting and bragging. White people are the best and all of this, but I'm not bragging and boasting about it. We don't need to do that because you just look around you. That's what they're all about, right? We're not here. I don't see black people going around hating people. We're not about that, right? I've not seen that, right? But we don't have no institutions to say that we can actually do anything to anybody, right? So we're basically open and vulnerable to other people doing whatever they want to us, right? Because we don't have a system in place that protects the rights of black people on the planet Earth, where they have justice. Because and quite rightly, Neely Fuller Jr., who is the father of talking about white supremacy system, institutional racism, and how these are all connected, right? He tells you, directly speaking, that you're not, you know, the system is set up like that, isn't it? Right? It's set up in a certain way where it has to maintain its whiteness. It's maintaining and sustaining its whiteness, okay? But the only way it can do that is to oppress other groups of people, right? So Neely Fuller Jr. is the master of that subject, okay? And there's been others. You know, if you can go to Dr. Chris Westlin in her book, The Colour Thesis, the ISIS paper, the Colour Theory or the Colour Thesis, she explains it there quite well. And there's been others, right? But what I'm saying is that kind of language, a lot of our people find it troubling. Or I mean, I didn't know nothing about it. I'll be honest, I was ignorant and oblivious to a lot of different things. But until somebody sat me down and explained it to me, I didn't know what it was about. But Dr. Les Henry, I want to big up Dr. Les Henry, who done extensive research, and a lot of these people have done extensive research in understanding how the system operates and functions and how it affects us ultimately, right? Well, we have our own narratives around these things. Okay, we've studied a lot of things. We've been here long enough. We've been writing books. We've done research. We've done this for the last 100 years, right? So what I'm talking about is nothing new, right? The only problem is that we don't have our own institutions, right, to be able to disseminate our knowledge and awareness and how we need to edify people around the globe about the things that represents us as a people. We're good people, loving, happy, peaceful people. We're not going around destroying people's lives. We're not going around creating havoc, chaos, and destruction, all of this stuff, okay? In fact, we're vulnerable. Again, we're vulnerable and open to vulnerability and being kind of taken advantage of because we don't have systems in place to protect us, right? And a lot of people know this. That's why they do the things that they do, right? Anyway, it goes on to say, let me finish this article. It says that David Lemmy, the Labour MP who campaigned for the rights of British Windrush citizens, demanded that the truth must be published in full. The Windrush Scandal resulted in the systematic deportation and detention of black citizens by the UK, the Tottenham MP said. The victims' nationality and rights were denied because of the colour of their skin. This is what David Lemmy is saying, not me, right? He's saying, well, David Lemmy is a black MP, by the way, for those people who don't know, who is in part of the Labour government, right? Anyway, he suddenly starts talking and raising his voice. Before he wasn't saying nothing, but now I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It must have felt like he had. And the thing is, I think the only reason why he said something, because this all happened, I'll be honest with you, right? The Labour government, it happened under so many different leaders now. You have to look at it, yeah? But the Labour leader that they had before was Ed Miliband, right? Ed Miliband told the Labour Party to abstain from voting. That's what he told. And David Lammy didn't. He did exactly what the Labour leader told him to do. He abstained, right? Whereas Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn and a few others, okay, they voted against the Immigration Act 2014, right? So I don't know. I don't understand what's going on with David Lammy, because now he's talking up for black people. But then I think maybe because it was Ed Miliband to me wasn't really a good leader anyway for the Labour Party or for any party. You just weren't cutting it for me as far as I'm concerned, right? I do watch some politics, you know what I'm saying? So I can have an opinion, right? But, even though I'm not kind of involved in that kind of stuff, right? I'm more interested about what I can do to help my people, right? In the best way possible. But at the same time, you have to keep an eye on what's going on, what these people are doing, because the things that they're doing will affect us. So you got to know what's happening out there. You got to know what these people are doing. So Ed Miliband may have been like a leader that he felt like black people might have felt, well, being in the Labour Party, I feel like I shouldn't say anything. So maybe he didn't say nothing. So then now Jeremy Corbyn's come along. Jeremy Corbyn's a little bit more kind of liberal, more relaxed. He's somebody that's reachable, you can talk to, and all of this stuff. To me, down with the common people, right? So I think maybe that gave him a breath of more, energy. Maybe it souped him up that he could say something. So maybe that's the difference. I don't know, right? But anyway, David Lammy now is speaking up for black people in the Labour Party, which is cool. And, this article goes on to say that it would be an outrage and an insult to the Windrush generation for Wendy Williams' independent review to be watered down for political reason. The Home Office did not deny the report had been toned down, right? So the Home Office has not denied it. They toned down the thing, innit? Because they got to think about their reputation, right? So how would it look that the British government, they're just going to say it's just an immigration office, isn't it? They're going to say, oh, it's like they're working by themselves, isn't it? So they can offset any accountability, right? That is going to go straight to the cabinet, straight to the top of the political echelon, right? So they're going to, butt shift the blame emphasis onto the department, right? The immigration department or the Home Office. So the Home Office is denying it. Everybody's denying that they're racist. Everybody's denying that, it's hostile and all of this stuff. Anyway, it's concluded, it said the criticism of the government anti-immigration hostile environment led to the resignation of Amber Rudd as Home Secretary in 2018. Now, there's a lot of talk about Amber Rudd recently, innit? Because I caught wind of that she was meant to be having some lecture or some presentation in some university, I don't know, right? And 30 minutes before the actual speech, they turned around and said that you can't go anymore, Amber Rudd. You know what I'm saying? You can't go because of that Windrush scandal, right? So these things will reverberate, right? And people won't forget, but the most people will forget. They'll forget. I think some people have forgotten already, right? But this thing is ongoing. It's still live right now, right? As I said, there's a compensation scheme, Windrush compensation scheme. We need people. We need workshops. We need lectures, presentations. We need the whole shebang to get people to be informed and aware of what's actually going on. And then we also need to get people to understand how the point system, the new immigration point system based system works as well, right? And people need to be educated or edified. I don't stop using that word education, because it's really miseducation we've been going through. Miseducation and indoctrination. The church and the school system and education system, that's the sandwich. We've been sandwiched, and these things have been dumbing us down, right? That's why we've got to move away from a lot of this stuff there, innit? Right? And some of our people understand that and know that. All right. So Amber Rudd is in hot water right now with a lot of different people, and some of these characters will be. And they'll, people won't forget what you've done or what part you played or how you participated or what role you played, aiding and abetting and all this stuff, right? Anyway, conclude it says that an internal Home Office survey last August found that immigration staff were seeing rising levels of discrimination from colleagues. There you have it, right? Not me, Sayshara, saying that. This is what they're saying. This is in the government. This is in the parliamentary system. These are the people that's meant to be looking after you, right? Saying this. All right, Sayshara just wants to give out the telephone numbers now here on the Interactive Sunday show, which is 073 054 17668. Again, I apologize for anybody that sent the link. I sent you a link, sent you to an empty page. I apologize for that. I'll correct that already for some people. Some people I haven't had time to do that. Right? But I've got a couple of texts here. Let me see if I can retrieve them somehow. Okay, let me see what's going on there. All right. 483 says, the problem with us as black people, we are very reactionary. We don't seem to plan for the future. We are immigration body to scrutinize the government. We're so unorganized as a group. And that's right. That's true. And that's why, this is what I'm saying to you. We've been there too long, right? Not to have certain things in place, innit? Doesn't really make sense. We have to ask the question, what is going on with us, innit? Right? But is it a question of that we're dependent on the system to sort out problems and issues, right? Respecting the government to finance and resource all the things that we need to do, the things that we could do for ourselves. Is that the problem? Because I think that is, right? We're too heavily dependent on this system. We have to stand up on our own 2 feet, man, at some point in our time. Because as long as we continue to depend on the system, begging them and getting them to sort out problems, every little problem and issues, or we keep on running to them, getting emotional and all this stuff, right? Right? Instead of saying, oh, we do need to plan. We need to plan ahead. We need to plan 5, 10, 15, 20 years as a group of people. What's wrong with that? Everybody else does what they want to do. Why don't we think that we need to do something constructive for ourselves so we can have self-respect for ourselves? To me, no one's not going to respect you if you're depending on somebody else to feed you, right? To give you whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? How is anybody going to respect you? What other culture is going to respect you if you don't respect yourself? Do you know what I'm saying? We're too heavily dependent on this system, right? And one of the things that I've noticed is that why we feel that it's not important for us to come together, but it's important for us to go shopping every day and every week, right? We become consumers, right? We think that we need to serve everybody but ourselves. So we're servants. 2, 3, right? We're like people that we're like kind of get absorbed into that entertainment stuff, innit? All that entertainment stuff, innit? Right? We love to get all involved being into entertainment, sports, and all of this stuff. Okay, so we serve that, right? And then the last and the most really one of these things that we have in a real problem is that we're like the biggest worshippers. We worship every type of God, Bible, church, and all of this stuff, okay? We've got nothing to show for it, or very little to show for it, right? So we're consumers, we're entertainers, right? We're servants, and we're worshippers to the system. But when it comes to us to talk about empowering and uplifting and elevating and improving our conditions and the quality of life, oh, Sayshara, why do we need to talk about that? Why do we need to do that? And then when we end up in Chick Creek, we're wondering why. You're too heavily dependent on the system. You can't expect the system to look after everything that you're doing, right? And don't think that the system, right, is not going to find a way to pull you down, to use you and abuse you. Just use you for what you got in it. Right? If you got land, we just use that. If you got labor, we just use that. If you got resources, we just use that. Your air, your water, your sea. Remember, laws, LASS. LAWSS. Land, air, water, sea, and even space, right? This is how this system is set up to control all of these things, right? All right, so look. Let me see if I can go to this text now. Finish this text. It goes on to say also on the same text, we're mentally still slaves and don't wish to be free from the shackles. That's the problem. In terms of that, and it's true, the mindset that we're in, okay, and it's not our fault. You can't, I admit, we have to apportion some blame. But if, for example, if somebody comes up to you with a gun and sticks the gun in your head and tells you to drop your trousers down or tells you to do whatever they want you to do, what are you going to do? You're going to do what that person who's got the gun in their hand, you're going to do what they tell you to do. This is a situation that we're in right now. We're forced to do things by the barrel of a gun, right? It may not be physical. You know, the gun's not physical there, isn't it? It's not physically there, is it? Yeah. But, you know, indivisibly it's there. We can't see it, but it's there, right? And, you know, one of the things that I've been saying is that we sustain to remain enchained in the brain, right? Because, just to touch on this, right? You cannot tell me that we're not indoctrinated as a group of people into a European dominated system that tells you how to think, right? And to prove it, and to prove it to you, right? That this not happened to any other culture, right? When that Windrush generation was around, okay, at the time, do you remember some of us, we had white Jesus, big man Jesus on the wall, innit, right? We had, yeah, we had, you know, we used to put these pictures up on the wall and luckily we were proud of them, right? But we had a big white man, what they call the big man Jesus on the wall, right? We also had the picture of Mary and baby Jesus on the wall. And then there was another popular picture of Jesus and the 12 disciples. That was a popular picture. And all. So these three pictures I remember very, very vivid growing up in the 60s, right? A lot of these so-called European traditions, right, that we tend to pass down from generation to generation is part of the problem while we kind of self-perpetuate our own indoctrination. Do you get what I'm saying? Not realizing that what we're using is a whip to whip us into a certain way of thinking. And that's how we think, like the way that we think when in terms of talking about religion, the Bible and God, which are the three tenets that make up these religions. And one day, I'm going to do a show on these religions because that's one of my subjects, right? I'll do a show on religion. I'll talk about religion objectively, not subjectively, objectively, right? Because then, to me, you learn a lot more. You understand where these religions come from, where the book come from, where the God come from, and where the church come from. You understand all these things, innit? It's basic fundamentals once you look into it, right? But most of us don't. We regurgitate what's in the Bible and in these books and all this. We just follow what everybody else is. We don't think we need to look any further, right? So we're following around in this comatose, paralytic state, comatose, docile, passive. That's what we are. But we're still loving people. We love everybody but ourselves, unfortunately, right? Because that's one part of the conditions as well, right? And there's loads of different aspects of our condition, of how we are and the mindsets of our people and the way we are, what you call imperialism, colonialism, enslavement, and all of this stuff, okay? All these different things, these different elements, they all make up religion, all these different things make up all these confusion, right? This confused state of thinking, these things that distract us and deviate us from where we need to be or where we need to go in terms of going forward. So we take the past, move on into the present, into the future, right? Again, telephone numbers are 07305 417-668. For Ferrity Radio, Sayshara's here. I'm still warming up the set, okay? There's a lot of things, a lot of changes, but as time goes by, there's a few things I haven't got around me, that, I like to use, but as time goes by, that will change, all right? So I'm just here, raw, kicking it live, okay? All right, so I've got one more text from 032. Okay. All right, so, I think this is from Auntie Jean. Big up Auntie Jean. Okay. So I'll give you a short announcement, okay? Sunday the 15th of March, back at the new venue, the EMLM Centre, 5 Rosenthal Road, Rushy Green, Catford, AC6 2BX. Invited special guest, I want to big up my brother, Danny Pink, Guan, but he's going to be there. It's going to be talking about what's the latest, the next move after the Mayor of Lewisham, and there'll be visits at the Sunday coffee morning to answer questions on education and the borough. I'll be looking to go to that coffee morning, Saturday coffee morning. I think it's this Saturday coming, yeah? So Sunday coming, this event's going to be happening, Sunday the 15th of March, okay? All right, so you're going to also have Tommy Offie, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, how to develop unmeasurable intelligence in the 21st century and how to read a book in an hour. Very interesting. Yeah. All right. Also for Kwabena, we're talking about culture. What is it and how does it work? And there'll be an open mic for announcements, spoken word artists, singers, musicians, dancers, etc. For more information and store availability, call Auntie Jean on this number 079 61 886 032. Peace and harmony, Auntie Jean. I'll repeat that number for anybody who was interested in the Garvey I'm getting confused with the Garvey village, okay, because it's connected. And as time goes by, I'll talk about the Garvey Village Enterprise, but it's very much connected to Jean's African Culture Market, okay? And if you go to this event next week, Sunday, you'll get some information about this Garvey Village Enterprise and how you can fund it, because what we're attempting to do is possess our own building. All right, thanks very much for that, Jean. That text, okay? All right, so I'm looking at the time. Unbelievable that the time has gone so fast, 5:30, and I've got 30 minutes left, okay? And I've only just touched on the surface of things, really. I've got so much information on what. But let me see what I could go to. All right, so this now is cool. I'm going to go to. It says here, the Windrush Scandal was no accident. Leak review. The leak review has given us. All right, this is from the Morning Star in June 28th, 2019. So the Windrush Scandal was no accident, leak review says, right? So Windrush was no accident but a result of scapegoating and scaremongering. The Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigration, JCWI, said that today, after a review into the scandal was leaked, the independent draft review seen by JCWI and Channel 4 News found that the Home Office was reckless for failing to monitor the impact of its hostile environment immigration policy, in particular in housing. It found that the government department is failing in its legal duty to counter radical discrimination. I think it's meant to say racial discrimination, but it's got radical discrimination. It's a spelling mistake. And ministers have woefully ignored evidence and failed to come clean with the public about the risk of their policies. And then it says JCWI Chief Executive Satyabar Singh said the review confirms that Windrush was no accident, but the inevitable result of a broken immigration system driven by the divisive politics of scapegoating and scaremongering. See, I said that. Didn't I say that the whole thing is contrived, okay? So this article is saying that it's not no accident, right? So it's validating what I'm saying, which is that this is all a setup, right? And it was inevitable it was going to happen, right? But it shouldn't have happened because there should be places there should be things in place to prevent these things from happening, right? But we're not structured, strong enough, we're not powerful enough, and we're not organized enough to be able to do anything about it. And when we do, it's not too late. It's never too late, but it's like at the end of when it's happening, that's when we want to do things. No, we need prior information, and then we need to not react, but respond, right? Intelligently and constructively, we're dealing with some of these problem issues. Okay, so it goes on to say that that he said that JCWI warned, listen to this, warned the government repeatedly that the Home Office and immigration system are not fit for purpose, and the hostile environment was a failure. In February, we proved in the High Court that landlord immigration checks cause racial discrimination. After today, there is nowhere left to hide. The Tory leadership candidates must pledge to scrap the hostile environment, repeal right to rent, and rebuild the immigration system from the ground up. He said the JCWI expects the government to release the full report without delay so that we can begin finally to build a humane, fair and functional immigration system. Home Office staff at all levels need to be educated on Britain's whole history, including its colonial past, the report urged. It says ministers should all admit that this was not just an operational issue, but they were wrong at the policy level and should unequivocally apologise. Labour's Shadow Home Secretary, Diane Abbott, also called for the end of the hostile environment policy. She said, and quote, "This damning review details the terrible experience of many of the Windrush generation under the Tories' cruel and degrading hostile environment. The government is still failing to address the injustices that have caused British citizens to lose their jobs, lose their homes, and being deported." Labour MP David Lammy, warned that it is vital that the next Prime Minister learns the lessons and immediately scraps the immigration policies concerned. You're not going to get that from Boris Johnson. Let's be real. Boris Johnson is with the class elite, right? And I personally think he's part of the institutional racism that he's about, right? And that, comparing to Trump, right? And to me, I'll tell you the truth, Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, they're both, I don't know how to put these characters in it, really. Splitting image, the puppet show, splitting image. I can only say that these people are nothing more than they got split personalities, isn't it? Just like splitting image, right? So they're going to be all over the place. Trust me on this. They're going to be all over the place, right? And it's going to be interesting. Like I said, the similarities between Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, they're so similar, right? Anyway, to conclude on this article, it says the government claims that the Windrush was unforeseen or unavoidable. This is what the government's claiming. The government claims that Windrush was unforeseen or unavoidable, or the fault of the victims are rebutted in the report. It instead blames a negative Home Office culture which defends, deflects, and dismisses criticism. Inspector of the Constabulary, Wendy Williams, who led the review, said that there was a defensive culture that results in an unwillingness to learn from the past mistakes. So some of these things repeat themselves, okay, right? But you see, a lot of people are saying similar things, okay? So it's not that I'm saying it, right? It's just out there, isn't it? Right? So we looked at that. Now, what we need to look at that, there is, if you go to Windrush Generation, Government Action to Right the Wrongs, you come up with the Parliament page, or www.parliament.uk. And this is in the House of Libraries, so the House of Commons Library. And it says there that the efforts by the Home Office to remedy. So this proves that the government knows it's done something wrong, innit? Right? And so they're trying to right the wrongs. But the way they're going about doing it, right, it's wrong, right? What they're trying to do is just throw money at it. They're throwing money at it, right? And they think that's going to solve the problem. But they're not going to put things in place, right? They're going to scapegoat and they're going to shift the blame, right? Or they're going to play tennis with, you know, who they want to blame. They're going to bounce the whole thing backward and forward, right? Anyway, it says here, efforts by the Home Office to remedy injustices suffered by people caught up in the Windrush Scandal are ongoing. The Windrush Compensation Scheme has recently begun to issue award offers, and legislation underpinning the scheme has been introduced for the 2019 session. Some stakeholders remain dissatisfied with aspects of the government's response to the scandal. Now, there's a report that you can download, right? You can download the report onto your PDF, and it's called the Windrush Generation Government Action to Right the Wrongs. I expect groups, organisations, especially reparations and that kind of organisations, to be well informed around this. They should be well intelligent around this information. You know, so we can find things to resolve, we can find ways to resolve these types of things, right? Just going on right now. And it says here, in late 2017, the Guardian newspaper began reporting stories of long-standing UK residents who were being wrongly classed as illegal immigrants and consequently denied access to employment, healthcare and other services in the UK and targeted for removal. The obstacles these individuals encountered trying to prove their status and the dire implications for their lives in the UK have come to be referred to as the Windrush Scandal. The overall number of people affected isn't known. This is the thing, isn't it? Yeah. I try to find out how many, let me stop there, yeah, and say this, yeah. I try to find out how many people have been deported, right? In how many years? I can't find really information. I've heard figures like 3,000 a year, right? But I don't really know, right? But it'd be interesting to know how many people has been deported, you know, in total, and then break down these figures, how many people were deported illegally or wrongly and all of this stuff, right? Anyway, it goes on to say that the overall number of people affected isn't known. Attention initially focused on people from Caribbean Commonwealth countries, particularly Windrush children, people who came to the UK as children to join family members who had migrated post-World War II, but people from other countries have also been involved. Okay, it says, what caused the problem? This is asking the question, what caused the problem? Whilst the Immigration Act 1971 provided that foreign nationals who were ordinary residents in the UK on the 1st of January 1973, when the Act came into force, were deemed to have settled status, indefinite leave to remain, but in practice, many people have been living in the UK for decades without documentary proof of their immigrant/nationality status. There's a lot to say about that as well, yeah? But I'm not going to say anything right now. I'm going to move on. It says that this has become increasingly problematic for individuals as laws to detect and discourage illegal immigrants have proliferated, particularly following the introduction of hostile, also known as compliant. Environmental policies since 2010, these policies were aimed at tackling illegal immigration by making other people without legal status to access services and live undetected in the UK. But in practice, some people who were lawfully resident in the UK but didn't have documentary proof of their rights also became affected by the measures and found themselves denied healthcare, welfare benefits, pensions, housing and jobs. In theory, they could resolve their difficulties by applying to the Home Office for confirmation of their status. However, issues such as a significant application fee and the amount of supporting evidence required by the Home Office pose additional practical obstacles for some people. The Home Office has acknowledged that it lost sight of this cohort of cases when designing and implementing border immigration policies. Successive Home Secretaries have apologised for the appalling treatment that individuals have experienced and vowed to put the injustices that people affected by the scandal have suffered. Action taken by the government in response is this, right? And it says, under pressure to recognise the significance of the problem, in April 2018, the Home Office announced some measures it was taking to address the Windrush generation's situation, which this included, right, note this, conducting reviews of historical Caribbean Commonwealth cases wrongly targeted by the Home Office for detention, removal of a compliant environmental sanction. Actions taken by the government in response is also establishing a Windrush scheme to issue confirmation of status documents and in some cases grants of British citizenship free of charge to eligible applicants. Establishing a Windrush task force to assist people who may be eligible under the Windrush scheme. Establishing a Windrush compensation scheme, which we've been talking about, right? Initiating an independent lessons learned review, which we talked about, we touched on not too long ago, and also suspending aspects of the hostile/compliant environmental policy and amending some related guidance. Now, some of the things they've done, some of the things they haven't done, right? But anyway, it goes on to say that most of these work streams are still in progress. The time-limited compensation scheme was launched in April 2019. All claims, repeat, get this message out. All claims received on before the 2nd of April 2021 will be considered by the Home Office. There is a 6 months grace period until the 2nd of October 2020 for claims received after that date. But this will only cater for claims considered by the Home Office to involve exceptional circumstances. Right? So the Windrush Compensation Scheme Expenditure Bill was introduced to the House on the 8th of January 2020. Its purpose is to give parliamentary authorization for expenditure under the scheme. Really, I don't think 2 years is enough. I think it should be 5 years, maybe even 10 years, right? But anyway, they give a window of 2 years. So this compensation scheme and maybe all the other work streams that they talk about, they're saying it's meant to start. So it was launched in April 2019, right? So 1 year next month, April, will be 1 year, right? So you only got another, 13 months left, right? Maybe if you had another 6 months for exceptional cases, another 6 months, who knows, 18 months, right? But just say 13 months, right? Another 13 months left from the 2 years. Anyway, the ongoing controversies, it says, is that the government's response to the Windrush Scandal continues to be controversial, of course, because it's highly controversial. A lot of people don't understand a lot of different things, isn't it? Because there's a lot of things involved. The Immigration Department, apparently, people are saying that it needs to form another department. In other words, they need to break that department down because they're saying that department's too big, and for it to be more manageable, they need to break it down, right? But we'll see how that goes, right? So maybe there's a lot of problems in immigration. It's not working, right? That department, the Home Office, whatever they're doing, it's not working. It's never been working properly, right? And I think it's just the way they operate. I think it's got like an attitude that's negligent. It's negligent, right? Anyway, the other things that they're talking about is that in a couple of cases, people have died before their cases and claims for compensation were resolved. Although there was an extensive consultation on the design of the compensation scheme, the final arrangements haven't been heavily criticised. The final arrangements have been heavily criticised. Objections have been raised against the restrictions on the types of losses that individuals can claim for and the limits on the amount of compensation that can be awarded for certain categories of loss. The opposition has also objected to the arrangements for reviewing compensation offers as insufficient. All right? So, external scrutiny, the Home Office role in the Windrush scandal and the adequacy of its response has been heavily criticised by the National Audit Office and several parliamentary committees. The Windrush Lessons Learned Review, which has been led by Wendy Williams, HM Inspector of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue and Services, has not been published but is expected imminently. And it says other groups to be at risk of similar difficulties, and it says observers have identified other groups of people living in the UK who are facing similar difficulties in securing or documenting their status, or might do in future as a result of Home Office policy and practice. Specific concerns have been raised about people living in the UK with rights under EU law, undocumented children, and the Chagos Islanders. The Home Office has rejected the comparison. All right. So I've got 12 minutes left, and you know, I'm gonna have to conclude because I've got just a few minutes here. But what else can I be looking at? So I said I was going to cover the subject around the what you call the immigration point-based system, the new immigration point-based system, right? But let me see what else was going on. Let me see. It says there, victims of the Windrush scandal have little time for complaints and bullying at the Home Office. Let me see what that's saying. So, this is where I got the figure, because there is an argument around, they're saying that victims of the Windrush scandal have little time for complaints about bullying at the Home Office. And this is referred to an article in The Guardian by Amelia Gentleman, March the 3rd, 2020, all right? Where Philip Ruttman recently announced that he's resigned and all that stuff. But anyway, this article refers to it, right? It refers that link, that office, that link to the Windrush generation. But what was interesting is here it is that, just read this little bit here. It says that it's almost 2 years since the government acknowledged that its own policy caused horrendous suffering, but the Home Office compensation scheme designed to pay out somewhere between 200 and 570 million has distributed just 62,198 pounds between 36 people. So it says that the hostile environment legislation remains in place, right? So that's the amount of money that's supposed to be around. I don't know why it's such a broad amount of money between 200 and 570. I don't understand that. But so you're saying that nearly between 200 to nearly 600 million pounds, they're throwing at this, right? To give you an idea, how much money is involved, right, in the compensation scheme, but so little has been distributed. So there's something, again, wrong with the system, right, why they're holding all this money back in it, right? And I've heard some things like that people that have claimed have received, or I don't know if they've actually accepted it, but they've received the sums of money that doesn't equate to their work, employment pay, doesn't evaluate and doesn't equate to the money that they're working for, their living expenses, the inconvenience, and a whole list of stuff, right? I think one person was working in some government agency, and they're only receiving £1,000, but they've been £1,000 a year or something like that, and that they've been working well over 20, 30 odd years, right? And they're only giving them 20 grand or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Peanuts. And so that's what's going on, right? So also, the other thing that I want to touch on before we head out. Just looking at it, I'm mindful of the time. Like again, I said, there's never enough time to go over everything, yeah? But I think more or less I covered a lot of stuff. I did want to talk about the process around how people are being dealt with, or how people have been mistreated and ill-treated, and then what would it be like? What was that hostile environment really like? Okay, from the start they were picked up, okay, and brought to the, to the detention centers, from the detention centers to the plane to Jamaica or whatever Caribbean or African country. And what happens after that when those people land in places like Jamaica or in Kingston or wherever, right? What happens to them? I know there's some organizations out there. Some of them are funded by the government. Some of them are self-funded. When I say government, I'm talking about the British government. Some of them might be funded by the Jamaican government. But as you know, the Jamaican government or these Caribbean governments, they don't have a lot of money, right? So I don't think there's a lot of things happening there in terms of the process of transitioning deportees back to having a normal life in another country that they've never been in for decades. And this is the problem. It's easy for people to say, yeah, just kick him out, and all of this stuff, right? Right? But a lot of people don't understand the tribulation. They don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand the ins and outs of what's actually taking place, how people's rights have been abused, how people are mistreated, how people are being treated, how people have suffered mentally, physically. Some people even have died in the process, right? So it's easy for people to stand up or sit down in their houses talking about, yeah, just get rid of them. Even some of our own people. Some of our people should be ashamed at some of the things that they're saying about some of their own people. So you have to ask these questions. Why did the Windrush Scandal, why did that have to happen, right? Rather than, human rights and civil liberties abuse, which is the inhumane, ill and mistreatment of people from the Caribbean and Africa, primarily. And so the damage has already been done. We're looking at the, how it's broken down homes, how it's broken down communities, and all of this stuff has, caused a lot of issues. And there's a lot of pain and suffering out there. And that they're just trying to find money to alleviate the problems of what they're talking about, right? So going back to what I'm saying in conclusion, okay, 70 years of oppression. We have to evaluate and assess the incriminations and the discriminations of the injustices. People are questioning, and should be questioning, 1,000 questions. And even though we're answering all these questions, you might find we ask 1,000 questions, but you don't get one. And is the British government, based on all the evidence that can be surmised, guilty of institutional racism? And that covertly, that is what they have been practicing all along, right? So let me just double check that got no more texts, because I'll be going in a minute, okay? And I want to thank all those people for taking the time for tuning in. All right, so someone sent me a text around. Okay, this is a quick one for those people interested in the Garvey Village. It would be, okay, it says that there is a, I can't explain it. All right, so I'm just going to read it as it is, yeah? It says, the Garvey Village application has been accepted by the Mayor of London's Speyside crowdfunding application, and we've passed the 100 pledges mark, and a big thank you to all who have pledged and donated their time, money and skill that has helped us to get where we are today. But we still have a long way to go. We need as many pledges as possible, as the pledges shows that the community is supporting the Garvey Village project. You can make a pledge of a minimum of £2 to any amount you can afford. Please go to spacehive.com/the Village, or put in the Garvey Village Space Hive. Okay, but if you prefer to just make a donation, you can via NatWest Bank Garvey Village Enterprise account number 49280155, sort code 602310. Alright, so that's the NatWest Bank for those people who want to donate to the Garvey Village Enterprise. The account number is 49280155, sort code 602310. I've got loads of other announcements I ain't going to be able to go through. I'm sorry, I really apologise. I apologise for not getting in even more information. I've only got 3 hours. Okay, I want to big up all those people tuned in and locked in. I want to big up the Black Father Support Group. I want to big up Auntie Jean's Garvey Village Enterprise, African Culture Market, and all those people that's participating in all these different aspects of going towards building and empowering our people in different ways and different forms. Every little bit counts. And if we all do a little bit, we can get a lot done. All right? We have to look at different things in different ways and challenge ourselves and challenge the way that we need to be doing things and continue to build. So much things is going on. And I know that there's never enough time a day, but this takes some time to, deal with our families, deal with our communities, and deal with our nation. Just a little time, and try and help each other. And I'll assure you, a lot of these problems will go away once we start doing these different things. Okay, that's going to help get us out of our situation, to help us to.
Went to Africa and you told the Africans that they must all become Christians, because if they become Christians, when they die, they will go to heaven, because heaven is a wonderful place. Ladies and gentlemen, if heaven was such a good place, do you think white people will tell black people about it? So we came to England with all the expectations of being equal. Here we are in the mother country. The white man can't come to terms with it. And I'll tell you something, as I've said before. If you English people, not white people, if you're not English, you're welcome to stay in England. If you're English and you don't like the way we are running England, please leave.
We are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
The willingness to speak truth.
And I always want to do something. To help my people.
After listening to the lies made up by federal government mainstream media,
I'ma tell them what.
Ain't right, man, ain't right.
You know what I mean?
I think it's time for you to hear the truth.
Tell the truth, man.
Every nation, in every region, now has a decision to make.
Hey yo, they don't like my songs. Bush came to my yard, he wants to take me on. Phone the most high, I'm like, yo, it's on. Devil's in my face, Pop, don't be long.
All you need is spice and soul. Have no fear, my son, my kingdom you alone. 400 years, no knowledge of your home. Now is your chance to reclaim your throne.
Okay, Pop, yeah, no doubt. I buzz you back once I've taken him out. But he reckons I got weapons, what's he talking about? I don't like the way the devil's running his mouth.
Don't watch that, discussing his